This is amazing. We got a bunch of big news today. So Twitter Files 2.0 are getting released, and it's kind of more of a supplemental, Matt Taibbi says. Apparently, James Baker, former FBI, involved in the Steele dossier, the Russiagate hoax, the fake impeachment against Donald Trump, was counsel for Twitter. I think he was, deputy general counsel or something. And Elon Musk just fired him. This has to be the craziest oversight. So they're trying to release the Twitter files, evidence that the FBI was involved in suppression of information on Twitter. There is a portal for them to use on Twitter and Facebook to manipulate and censor information. When this guy is ousted from the FBI, he eventually finds his way to Twitter. And then get this. It was in 2018 that Yoel Roth of Twitter said he got in contact with the DNI, with DHS, with FBI. And then sure enough, this disgraced establishment deep state FBI guy gets a top lawyer position for Twitter. And then when they're trying to release the documents, this guy's jamming it up. It's just absolutely incredible. So to say that it was just, the FBI guiding, at this point, when you've got former disgraced FBI working as counsel in tandem with the FBI to censor information, come on, don't play those games with me. When we see people at like Monsanto or whatever corporation resign and then get appointed to a position in like the FDA or the federal government, we're like, yeah, no, we get what that's all about. When say like a high ranking member of a company, I don't know, Halliburton or something, somehow becomes vice president or something, and then we go to work. Come on. So this is crazy. And we got some other news too. We got Alex Jones giving more information on what happened with Ye. Apparently, He was told they weren't going to talk about this stuff, and they did anyway. Sounds very, very similar to what we're seeing here. We'll talk about that, plus this story out of Philadelphia, where I think it's a gas station, where they got armed guards with some rifles now. Because I'll say it again, man, I think law enforcement doesn't exist. What I mean by that is, of course, there are police, of course, there's the FBI, but they're not enforcing the law anymore. I don't know what they're doing. It's political, or what we're seeing across the board with like Katie Hobbs certifying her own election, the raw exercise of power. So we'll talk about all of that. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member to support our work. We had some issues with the members only show yesterday. It was Chef Andrew Gruel. He cooked this amazing omelet with like Brussels sprouts, but it got fixed. So that episode is up. We're going to have another members only show for you coming up tonight. Should be a whole lot of spicy fun, not so family friendly. So don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about all of this is Savanah Hernandez.
Thank you for having me, Tim. I mean, I, for one, am completely shocked that our own FBI would, try to hamper the truth about what's been going on at Twitter from us. Our own FBI, who could imagine that they would be at the forefront of this?
Shocking. I mean, since the days of the Honorable J. Edgar Hoover, they've been nothing but a proud American institution.
So you're telling me, based off of these new revelations, that the FBI doesn't have the American interests public at the forefront? I'm truly shocked. I really am. I don't even know how to, properly assess what we're seeing today, but I guess we're going to have to really delve into it. I'm excited
Savannah,
to do so.
Compose yourself. It's shocking.
I know.
But
our own government being corrupt. I could never imagine. Tim, as somebody who barely got reinstated on Twitter after being permanently banned for the past 2 years, just 2 weeks ago, I, for one, am completely shocked that our own government and big tech would try to censor the truth from the American people.
Insane. Mm-hmm. So what do you do for those that don't know you?
For those that don't know me, I am a journalist who goes and covers specifically like progressive cities here in the United States. I like to do a lot of man on the street work. I go and I talk to people on the ground. When our beloved President Joe Biden says that the economy is doing great, that we're flourishing, that the gas prices are lowering, I love going and speaking to Americans and asking them, hey, what's actually going on in the streets? I've covered extensively the NCAA championship earlier this year where Leah Thomas was swimming, and I was able to combat the narrative that it was a great thing that Leah Thomas was swimming against females. I've broken stories regarding Black Lives Matter, covered the riots. I've been focusing in a lot on drugs, crime, and homelessness in progressive cities, specifically Democrat-run cities, to kind of highlight the reality of that. So that's a little bit of what I do.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for having me.
We also have Luke.
Wait until you guys find out about the CIA. There's a lot of things to talk about. My name's Luke Radowski here. I am your humble t-shirt vendor. Today I'm wearing a t-shirt that reads, I am blank and ready to talk about politics at Christmas. If you want to find out what blank is, you will have to go to thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And because you guys do that, this is the main way that you guys support me. So thank you so much for doing so. And this should be a great show. Thanks for coming, Savanah.
Hi, everyone. Ian Crossan here. Happy to rock and roll. Let's move this along. Serge, tell me about it.
Hey guys, I'm at Serge.com. Good to see you again.
All right, let's get into that first story from the New York Post. Elon Musk fires Twitter lawyer James Baker over Hunter Biden story suppression. And the funny thing is, you know, if you just read the headline, you're like, why is that news? Okay. Elon Musk fired Twitter general counsel. Okay, so it was just straight general counsel. Wow. In light of concerns about Baker's possible role in suppression of information important to the public dialogue, he was exited from Twitter today, Musk wrote on Twitter Tuesday. Musk added that he questioned Baker before his firing about the events surrounding the laptop suppression scandal, and that his explanation was unconvincing. Baker was previously general counsel for the FBI under former director James Comey and was a key figure in the Bureau's investigation into false claims of collusion between Russia and Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Full stop. The day, I believe it was the day, Donald Trump was inaugurated, a lawyer tweets, "We are going to impeach you." That lawyer later went on to represent a client whose name we won't say, and then he was part of the impeachment against Donald Trump. There have been people actively working against the president and the American people since 2016. How this man comes to leave in disgrace the FBI and then become general counsel for Twitter is very, very interesting, especially when you take a look at some of this other information. Let me see if I can pull this up. We have Josh Hawley there. Where do we have it? Is it there we go. America First Legal. Following the Twitter files, AFL has obtained new documents uncovering a secret Twitter portal U.S. government officials used to censor dissenting COVID-19 views and violate the First Amendment. So this is something more than just, in my opinion, the FBI advising Twitter, giving a humble warning to Mark Zuckerberg. No, they had direct access, and they had some of their loyalists inside the company. Matt Taibbi writes on Twitter, "On Friday, the first installment of the Twitter files was published here. We expected to publish more over the weekend. Many wondered why there was a delay. We can now tell you part of the reason why. On Tuesday, Twitter Deputy General Counsel," okay, so it was Deputy, "Jim Baker was fired. Among the reasons, vetting the first batch of Twitter files without knowledge of new management. The process for producing the Twitter files involved delivery of two journalists, Barry Weiss and me, via a lawyer close to new management. However, after the initial batch, things became complicated. Over the weekend, while we both dealt with obstacles to new searches, it was Barry Weiss who discovered that the person in charge of releasing the file was someone named Jim. When she called to ask Jim's last name, the answer came back, Jim Baker. My jaw hit the floor," says Weiss. Look at this. The first batch of files both reporters received was marked Spectra Baker emails. Baker is a controversial figure. He has been something of a zealot of FBI controversies dating back to 2016, from the Steele dossier to the Alpha server mess. He resigned in 2018 after an investigation into leaks to the press. The news that Baker was reviewing the Twitter files surprised everyone involved, to say the least. New Twitter chief Elon Musk acted quickly to exit Baker Tuesday. Reporters resumed searches through Twitter files materials, a lot of it. Today, the next installment of the Twitter files will appear at Barry Weiss. Stay tuned. So, how you guys doing?
Yeah, I actually talked about this guy yesterday, and I brought up Jonathan Turley's article on him, and he called him the Kevin Bacon of the Russian collusion scandal. The story here is just absolutely bewildering, especially when you look into the greater details. This guy was fired from the FBI for leaking information on the Trump administration. This guy was behind a lot of the major warrants that were spying on the Donald Trump campaign. This guy then was working with Vijaya Gotti one-on-one when it came to censoring people in our political landscape, predominant people who supported the Trump administration. This guy's connected to the Clintons. He's connected to James Comey. He's connected to almost virtually everyone in the political sphere. And Elon Musk didn't even know he was working at Twitter deciding what kind of documents Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi were getting. What?
That's crazy.
How does that make sense? It doesn't. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely not. And you know what? This is just another great example, too, of just how far the tentacles of our government stretch in every aspect of our reality and of our truth. I mean, going into again, big tech, which is one of the areas and places where people cast their votes, where they gather their information, where their entire reality is dictated, essentially. You have the FBI here dictating reality, dictating truth, and dictating what we're allowed to see. So, even it's like our own government, right? We install somebody as president who we think is going to change things, but then they have to go through all of these other layers of corruption. And that's what we're seeing right now with Twitter and all the other, people involved with even suppressing the Twitter files.
It doesn't surprise me that there was some deep state act. And when I say deep state, I mean like administrative state. I know very well that people will leave the government. You mentioned this earlier, Tim, and then go work at Monsanto, or they'll be like a Monsanto chief and then they'll come work at the government, or they'll be like, it's just this revolving door of government corporate collusion. This is kind of the first time I've seen it in social media.
Yeah. Well, there's a saying, once you're CIA, you're always CIA. To think that the Federal Bureau of Investigations doesn't have a similar role in our private sector is foolish. So I think it's fair to say that the FBI has infiltrated many big tech social media companies, whether officially or unofficially, and a lot of the times it is them calling the shots here. And prove me wrong, because there's no other way to see this from the plethora of evidence that has been provided to us.
Yeah, I kind of just don't think that the country exists anymore.
I saw you tweet that earlier, too. What do you mean by that?
I mean that the idea of the United States is now this shell. You can see the flag, but even the embassies are flying different flags in some places. Not like flying on the flagpole, but they're putting up like the pride flag and stuff like that. You go to a major city, the attitude, the belief structure is so dramatically different from people outside of cities. It's a clear distinction here. Then you get to the courts. Okay, it's illegal. We call it illegal immigration for a reason. Okay, well, a whole bunch of states just completely ignore that law, right? California, for instance, they call it a sanctuary state. You've got places like I think New York and San Francisco were doing this, upstate New York, allowing non-citizens to vote. Yeah. Now that these court cases are going through. Look. The southern border is completely porous. Non-citizens are voting. What does that even mean? How is it a vote if people who don't live here can change the way we have to live? Then you have all of the crime. Then you have this. Two things with this. That's why I say the U.S. doesn't exist anymore. I was talking about this earlier with some friends. They're like, don't you think? But this stuff's always been happening. And I'm like, yeah, back in the day of J. Edgar Hoover when he's digging up dirt on presidential candidates and stuff. But you see, the FBI, they were everywhere. There was like some unified authoritarian control over this country. Mm-hmm. Now, not only can we see them doing it, but we see them doing it. You know what I mean? Like, we know they do it, and now we're watching them do it, meaning their control has been completely subverted. So there's illicit activity going on from the federal government to try and control things, which they're failing to control, and then they're being exposed. So not only is there no seemingly functional law enforcement, if you look at what happened with Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you look at what happens with us, if you look at what's happening with police across the country and security in Philadelphia, like you were mentioning, these armed guards outside, the cops can't do anything. The FBI can't do anything. Swattings are happening like crazy to members of Congress. And now we're just sitting back, literally watching in real time the FBI fail to pull off an infiltration.
Well,
wow.
And I think what we're seeing too, right, in the modern days, if you really take a step back and look at it, is that all of our intelligence agencies have been weaponized against the American people. And then you go to the border, like you talked about, Tim. I've been to the border myself, and I've watched the flood of illegal immigration that happens every single day. I've talked to Border Patrol who say, we're essentially Uber for the illegal immigrants at this point. There's no stop to the flow there. We're essentially aiding and abetting human trafficking at our border. We're aiding and abetting the cartel at this point. The Biden administration might as well be putting money directly in their pockets because they are. So again, the border's an issue, the crime's an issue. And then on top of all of that, our own intelligence agencies are now attacking and, targeting the American citizens. So I completely agree with your sentiment that the United States no longer exists. And it was funny too, because so many on the left were saying, oh my gosh, Donald Trump called to abolish the Constitution. This is so horrific. I can't believe he would say something like that. And it's like, hold on. You guys impede on our First Amendment rights and our Second Amendment rights every single day. We just had Joe Biden the other week saying we need to ban assault weapons. Every single day you have the Democrats trying to take away our Second Amendment right, our ability to defend ourselves, to keep us from becoming New Zealand, China, or Australia. And you're mad because Donald Trump said something about abolishing the Constitution on Truth Social? Give me a break.
He didn't even say that. He's like, some rules, including some of those in the Constitution, may have to be suspended or terminated. I think terminated is what he said. Mm-hmm. So he didn't come out and say, like, terminate the entire Constitution. He was like, some of these rules have to be terminated. Okay, not a fan of when Abraham Lincoln did it. But Abraham Lincoln did it too. Just saying.
I get the vibe that the internet has changed the way nations govern themselves so drastically. This internet video and things like that now, like the cohesion of the myth of what we are used to be through ABC, NBC, CBS, and they were told to you, and that was the administrative state. Now everyone, it's madness. It's madness. And nations, I think, rightfully so, are dissipating. Like the idea that the United States ends at that drawn out line is ridiculous now. Those people on the other side, like the cartels you mentioned, are just as much a part of this system as I am, whether I want it to be or not. We're all in this together. So it's faltering. I don't think that it means that the American ideals are disappearing. I think that the Constitution and the ideas that it represents are fantastic and could be globally adopted. You see revolution in China.
Dude, with Ian, the fact that our own press secretary has the audacity to get up in front of the American people every single day and lie to us bold-faced. This administration tried to change the definition of recession as we were actively going through it. This entire administration tries to pretend that the economy isn't failing, that inflation isn't at a 40-year high. The fact that our own government is not fearful of the American people and they're willing to lie to us so bold-faced, it really pisses me off. And I think it goes to show that, we don't have the country that we once had. Jack Posobiec always loves to tweet that out, that the America that we once knew no longer exists. And I completely agree with that sentiment, because think about the fact, too, that we're raising an entire generation that thinks that this type of government is normal, that changing the definition of things is normal. I was thinking about the fact that TSA, right? I thought that was a normal thing. I wasn't aware that taking off your shoes, getting frisked by the TSA was not a normal part of modern day society. Think about the fact that Gen Z is going to think that face masks, that government overreach, that the government spying on you, that the government lying to you and redefining our modern day language is just how society has always run.
I'll make a point to the country no longer existing too. There are a lot of people that still believe in the United States. And they're holding to this ideal and this vision. I respect that. I like what America represents. I like the Constitution. But come on, take a look at the Constitution. Take a look at the Bill of Rights. Is the federal government abiding by the Bill of Rights? Let's go through it. The First Amendment. What did we just learn? Okay, well, the FBI, the DHS, DNI are colluding with big tech platforms to censor legitimate legal speech. Major political parties like the DNC, which includes public officials, are actively suppressing speech, and we can see it's happening in California. We can see it from the Missouri lawsuit. That's the First Amendment just gone. Yeah. Second Amendment, I don't even got to talk about that. Come on. Democrats are trying to ban semi-automatic weapons. Third Amendment, I got you there, baby. During COVID, they were mandating that you couldn't evict people, and that meant, and this is hilarious, by the way, that active duty soldiers, military personnel, who are currently living as tenants in property, they could not be evicted. And I got to say that literally violates the Third Amendment. The Third Amendment, of course, most people don't realize is the government can't quarter soldiers in your home. So the argument was actually made. Fourth Amendment? Oh, come on. The Fourth, has that one existed for a long time? NSA lying to Congress, they bulk spying, all of that stuff, tapping the deep sea cables. Come on, those are the first four that are gone. How about the Fifth Amendment? Oh boy. You want to go through this one? January 6th defendants.
Yep.
How long have they been locked up without charge, without trials, in solitary confinement? I get it. The list goes on. There's no right to confront your accuser. There's no speedy trial. Let's talk about the 9th and 10th Amendment. Oh boy, do we got to go there. Look, you've got the fracturing across the board of the Constitution. It's just non-existent. Sorry to say.
When you brought up Trump, I was going to make a joke. I was like, we have a constitution here? But you, but you made the point a lot more clearer by going through each of the amendments here. And
which one's the 7th? Is that the one about suing someone for $20? Or which one is that one?
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up right now. But there is something to say about rogue intelligence states that have pretty much just destroyed conversations, destroyed speech, destroyed people's ability to just have a fair political system. What's happening right now is not fair. What's happening right now is not just. It's one party consolidating enough power and authority for themselves to do whatever they want, trying to create a Chinese-style totalitarian society where they try to disarm you, put you on a social credit score as you're going to be living through a central bank digital currency, asking for permission just to do anything in your life. As, of course, the richest, most powerful people are only setting policies that are making them more richer and more powerful than ever. The last few years, we have seen the largest transfer of wealth in, I think, recorded human history. That is something worth noting when it comes to robbing people of any kind of ability, not only to fight back, but to live a life. That ability has been stripped away from a lot of decent, hardworking Americans that could no longer make ends meet. meet could no longer act by a society that is acting by fair rules, because it's not. Everywhere you go, there is some kind of nonsense, that is some kind of woke policy. There's some kind of bullcrap out there that just robs you of a good, fair, and honest living.
Luke, see, and I always make the argument as well, because we're constantly talking against the World Economic Forum, George Soros, a lot of these like you'll own nothing and be happy policies, right? But we're essentially already living through that. Do we truly own anything? If you pay off your house, do you truly own your house? Or are you still paying property taxes to the government? Do you truly have a constitution? Do you truly have freedom of the press in the United States of America? Or is big tech going to, like the New York Post story with Hunter Biden, kind of censor and suppress what you're really allowed to say ahead of a important election? I'm not sure. So, we have to ask these very important questions, because people are consistently warning against these things, warning against this totalitarian state, the authoritarian government. But I, for one, think that we're essentially already living through it, and we essentially have this illusion that we're not. But I don't think we're really free in the United States, unfortunately, anymore.
I'm going to pull up this Twitter thread we briefly went over before. It's from America First Legal, and we'll go through this. They say, following the Twitter files, America First Legal has obtained new documents uncovering a secret Twitter portal U.S. government officials used to censor dissenting COVID-19 views and violate the First Amendment. Follow along, they say. This is what 500 plus page release. In August of 2021, the head of Google's news lab for the Asia Pacific region, APAC, emailed a CDC vaccine confidence strategist to invite her to the APAC's Trusted Media Summit. CDC's vaccine confidence strategist then emailed the event planner for Google's APAC Trusted Media Summit, noting her excitement over being invited to what she referred to as the coolest misinformation fighting speakeasy. I don't want to go through every single element of this, but I want to highlight, and then we'll go through this, the fact that it's not just Twitter, okay? YouTube, obviously. Mm-hmm. I love this one. YouTube has rules on what you can and can't say about vaccination and COVID. Here's the funny thing. Those rules have dramatically changed over time. Mm-hmm. Is that YouTube accepting responsibility for false information, for posting misinformation? Now, YouTube can argue we were only following the guidance from officials. Well, now we actually have some testimony from some of these officials that they actually based their decisions off nothing. So here's what we have. The government, it's not just Fauci setting guidelines. It is the federal, the executive branch with direct access to Facebook, to Twitter, to YouTube, to censor information they don't like, often with zero merit. And where does that bring us?
Including satire, including humor, including legal political speech that couldn't be in the public discourse because some politician, some fat cat bureaucrat, some Karen Becky said, I don't like this speech, I'm going to censor it. That's the idea that a politician could say, those ideas shouldn't be in your mind is like peak Orwellian, peak tyrannical. It's something that we should push back immediately, because these people are essentially trying to push thought control, mind control on the general public, and there's no other way of arguing it. I don't see it any other way.
We used to talk about how in the United States you could mock your political leaders. You know, it's one of the few countries in the world where you can make fun of your president and all that stuff. You still can to a certain degree. But when people went online and made fun of Fauci, the government intervened and got these people banned.
Well, not only that, but remember that The Intercept just put out that article as well about the DHS and the Disinformation Governance Board and how they were trying to essentially censor speech regarding the withdrawal of Afghanistan, racism and social justice, or racial justice, I'm sorry. And then again, of course, COVID-19 as well. So going back to that freedom of speech, do we really have the ability to question our government officials? Like we talked about with Twitter, they have backtracked on a lot of their COVID-19 policy. I, for one, almost lost my entire YouTube channel because I was reporting what the own CDC was saying to us, and then, highlighting the hypocrisy of how they were kind of going back and forth with things. I got censored for that multiple times. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I was going to say that they did that to Crowder. Mm-hmm. Crowder got a strike for just reporting what the CDC was saying.
Yeah, that was a fun time. The past 2 years have been a lot of fun on big tech.
Yeah. Well, let me pull this real quick. Sorry, but just, Michael Tracy says, Yoel Roth said he had weekly meetings with FBI, DHS, etc. throughout 2020. Let me stress this. He writes, where is he? Since 2018, I've had regular meetings with the Office of Director of National Intelligence, Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and industry peers. During these meetings, they said, blah, 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 hacked materials about Hunter Biden. Here's what we know. Was the FBI directing Twitter to take things down? It appears not. But there was a former FBI agent who got hired by Twitter who was working alongside the FBI and then taking things down. So let's just be for real. Was the FBI directly doing it? Any sane person would say yes. To think that like this guy's ousted from the FBI, goes work to Twitter, then keeps talking to the FBI about how to operate, and it's not the FBI pulling the strings. Spare me.
Tim, honestly, I'm at the point where I'm like, put the FBI in the same category as the ATF and the CIA. Abolish all of them, because I truly haven't seen anything good come of the FBI. Is this the same FBI that's been entrapping Americans for, probably since its inception? I don't know. What good has come out of the FBI? Because maybe I'm just misinformed on this.
Whoa. The X-Files. That show is awesome.
They also, arrested peaceful preachers at abortion clinics.
Very true. Thank you to the FBI for targeting private American citizens. Good job, guys.
They were singing the hymns very aggressively.
Well, look, you guys know that silent prayer is violence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like those thoughts, those can hurt people.
Honestly, having dissenting views in 2022 is violence. This room is violence. I can feel it emanating, okay?
What was, COINTELPROBE, definitely something worthwhile to doing. Definitely something that was honorable and not deceitful and not working in secret in order to cause chaos within political movements.
I've gotten to the point in my career with politics where sometimes I just don't even want to look back historically at what our government and what our intelligence agencies have done to us and done to the American people, because it just black pills me to no end. I'm like, so the CIA is the one that brought LSD and crack to the American public. Got it. The FBI is the one who's been entrapping Americans for the past couple of years, and they were directly tied to January 6th. Got it.
Don't forget about funding cartels. And terrorist organizations.
And
ISIS.
Was Fast and
Furious. No. Fast and Furious was,
DEA?
DEA.
Exactly. You look at any of our intelligence agencies. Project Veritas just came out with their own expose about the HHS. And I was reporting on MVM Inc. earlier this year about how essentially we're trafficking children via taxpayer dollars, utilizing the cartel, the border, everything going on over there. Our government complicit in all of it. We're paying for child trafficking for crying out loud. And everyone's just kind of okay with it.
Hey, the FBI's not that bad. They did a really good job protecting Epstein for 30 years.
So true.
They made sure that he was able to continue his operations when the victims and the children were coming forward. They made sure to shut them up. And they did a great job at that in the 90s.
So this is the point that I was making about the U.S. Like, there was a period where their power was kind of absolute. That stuff they were doing, that was America. No, we didn't like it, of course. And then you're a conspiracy theorist if you thought it. But think about where we are now. It used to be that if you came out and said there was a cabal of wealthy elites who were trafficking children using a private island, they'd be like, you're crazy. And now it's a definitive fact. Like, Maxwell's literally in prison for this. Epstein is no longer living.
Now it's like you asked Bill Clinton about it, and it's like, please, do not question him about that, okay? Nobody needs to question Joe Biden about these things either. If it's not on the approved media question list, we're just going to go ahead and overlook it.
Maybe I should put this another way. Maybe it's wrong to say there's no U.S. anymore. Maybe for a period there wasn't one. Maybe this corrupt deep state controlling things was when the U.S. was suppressed, and what we're seeing now with us calling it out and pointing it out, exposing the corruption and stopping it, is the resurgence of America.
Tim, I've been looking into the Council on Foreign Relations and how they've had direct ties to, our upper officials in government
and media.
Exactly.
And the corporate world.
Again, this just goes back to me being super black-pilled, because you read about all of these groups that have had ties to who is allowed to be in our government, and it's this entire illusion of choice. So I do agree with that sentiment a little bit more, where it's like, well, maybe things have always been this way. We're just seeing it now in open because we have, freedom of information via big tech somewhat to see this. Maybe it's always been this way. Yeah,
Tulsi Gabbard, also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, a group started by Zbigniew Brzezinski and David Rockefeller that has codified a lot of the secretive, not secretive meetings and institutions that they have had within our national security state and the corporate banking world as well, instituting their policies covertly and also publicly as well. The larger point that I really wanted to make about this, and I'm so happy you brought up the Council on Foreign Relations. This is like the topic topic that I love to especially talk about. They banned me from their facilities previously before.
So you're doing something right.
But this is exactly how they work. It's a revolving door between a lot of people with government in the private world and not private world. And to think that their accomplishments, that their job leaves when they leave that physical office is again a misnomer. They're all interconnected. They're all dating each other. They're all related to each other. They're all going to the same parties. They're all doing the same drugs. They're all doing unspeakable things that I can't even mention here on this broadcast.
In Twitter
and
right now.
And they also run larger extortion operations on each other to keep each other in check. So this power grid system has many different layers to it, and I think we're seeing some people are arguing that maybe things aren't getting worse. Maybe we're just finding out about what they really are. And I think that's an aspect that I think we should be considering here. Are we finding out more and realizing the truth of this world that was hidden from us before, or is it really getting that bad? What do you guys think?
We're finding out more about what has always been, but it's also a set of new challenges. Right now, we need to protect our constitutional rights as American citizens. So we have encryption to protect our First Amendment right. You have decentralization to protect your First Amendment right because centralized systems are vulnerable. You have ghost guns. You have the ability to 3D print weapons to protect your Second Amendment right. Like, you can't rely on some external force to protect your rights. Those are your rights. And we need to work together to protect our rights as citizens.
Luke, and I'm so glad that you said that because what I have realized is Ian.
Well, Luke's
sorry, you're both white men. You guys look exactly the same. I'm kidding.
Don't make me start talking about it.
How can you? What do you mean? Luke's a person of color. Ian's
exactly.
white.
I apologize. I'm a bigot.
better.
What can I say? What can I say?
You know that Slavic people are people of color, right?
Yeah.
I do now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just told you I'm a bigot. Tim.
One more
I need to be
apology and it's
informed.
okay.
Before we get to real, tell me what I was saying was right again. What were you?
What were we just talking about? Oh,
Protecting your rights.
Council on Foreign Relations.
So the masses, what I have realized now going out, across America, because for the past 6 to 7 months, I really have dedicated my life to going to the Bronx, Skid Row, Portland, Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia, because I have wanted to see what has been going on in these cities, and I have wanted to see what the American public has been experiencing. But I realized that the masses and the majority of people genuinely do need somebody to think for them. And that's why it has been so easy for our government to just come in and take over, do something like this. We all see it in plain sight, and everyone's just like, okay, oh, well, the government is, kind of subverting the democracy, whatever. It is what it is. It's so rare to have people who are original thinkers and willing to stand up for themselves. And they think people like Tim Pool are going to come save them. They think people like Donald Trump are going to come save them. No, people have to go and stand up for their own rights and freedoms. You have to be the one to make the change. And you have to get rid of that mentality of, oh, well, someone else will do it for me. Someone else will say this for me. Like, no, you have to be the one who gets active in your community and makes the change. Because that's why America has gotten to where it currently is because of weak men, weak women, and weak-willed people who refuse to actually stand up and speak out against everything going on.
Some people would say we are change. But also, I want to make a correction here. It wasn't the DEA that was behind Fast and Furious. It was the ATF. So just a correction there. So
our other favorites, the ATF.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, the DEA shouldn't exist. The ATF shouldn't exist, and at this point, neither should the FBI. So, but to be honest, like the DEA and the ATF are like top contenders because like the DEA. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, marijuana Schedule 1.
Right.
What in the hell
there's
is
so
that?
much broken stuff about this.
The ATF's weird because what does firearms have anything to do with tobacco? Like, what the hell? Those are completely different organizations.
Jump.
Yeah. Let's jump to this story. We have this tweet from Jason Martinez. He says a North Philly owner says he's had enough violent crime at his gas station, so he's hired these guys to protect his customers in store. Does this make you feel safer or uncomfortable? Let me just say, we'll show you this guy right here. He's got a mask on. He's got what looks like an AR pistol. I think it's a Glock mag, so probably not 9mm. And you take a look at what we got here. There's another guy here. This fella over here. What does he got? He's got. I'm not sure. You guys probably know better than me. Is that a bullpup 12 gauge? No, probably not. Probably not. I don't know what that is. It's a bullpup something or other. But I got to be honest. I feel a whole lot safer with those guys standing around. I'm going to get gas and there's two dudes with rifles. I'm going to feel pretty good. Better than if they weren't there.
In these situations, that's true. And I also am like, okay, it's better than no security, but that is the slippery slope of private security is at first it feels good because it's better than none. But then all of a sudden there's going to be 6 guys. Then there's 14 guys. Then a corporation comes in and is running the show. Then the owner of the corporation decides, now this gas station's my gas station, and who's there to stop them? So like, you got to be real careful with private security.
You're describing governments, Ian.
Yeah.
That's what governments do.
All right. Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Someone said bullpup 556. Someone said bullpup 12 gauge. I'm not sure.
I think it's a 12 gauge.
I thought it was a shotgun. Yeah, 12 gauge bullpup shotgun, and then that's obviously a Glock mag in there.
Yes.
So it's like an AR pistol or whatever. You were in Philly, right? Did you see this stuff going on?
I was in Philly 3 weeks ago. I didn't see this type of stuff going on, but what I did see on the streets of Philly was absolutely horrific. Now, for viewers who aren't familiar with me, again, I have reported in the Bronx, on Skid Row, in Portland. In the course of 2 hours of reporting on Portland, I watched a man overdose in front of me and a woman's store get robbed. I immediately went and I interviewed the business owner, and she said, oh, this happens 2 to 3 times a day. I interviewed a police officer as the guy was overdosing. He says, oh, this happens 3 to 4 times a day. It's not a big deal. During the summer, we'll have 4 to 5 overdoses within the course of 1 block at the same time. Not a big deal. Going to Philadelphia was probably one of the most horrific places I have ever reported on. It was terrifying, and I completely understand the need to have this type of private security. When I was in Philadelphia, I was reporting on their needle exchange program. I was assaulted for reporting on a public street. I had my equipment smashed. I was slapped in the face. I had urine splashed on me. My friend was calling the police, to which I laughed and responded, why are you calling the police? They don't exist here. You think the cops are going to come and care that I got slapped in the face? You have people getting executed on the streets in Philly. My friend actually sent me a video just the other day. The exact location I was reporting in, a security guard shot in the back of the head, execution style, in the exact place that I was. That's what's happening on the streets of Philadelphia every single day. The police do not exist there. The police do not exist in Portland, where back in 2020, they decriminalized hard drugs, and you can go shoot up heroin in front of a police officer in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in Portland, Oregon. The police don't exist in these areas. So I completely understand, these private security members being hired.
Take a look at this right here. So a couple people have said 100% 12 gauge. Some people have said bullpup 556. It looks like a Tavor 12 gauge bullpup. Is that what it is? Because it looks very much like one that I have. And I'm looking at that barrel. What do you think, Luke?
Well, there's a Tavor 556, but I don't think that's it. I think it's a
12 gauge
bullpup.
Yeah, look at
shotgun.
the barrel.
I don't know who makes it and produces it.
I've got one. I got a bullpup shotgun. Looks just like that.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me. But
what's the accurate range on that thing?
Well, it depends what you're shooting.
Would you classify that as an assault rifle?
They do.
Looks very scary.
They assault like they
assault shotgun?
An assault shotgun. Yeah, of course, absolutely. Like if it has a pistol grip and a rifle and a rifle stock, it's an assault weapon.
Well,
the
good thing, Tim, is all of this gas station really had to do was say this is a gun-free zone, and then the criminals wouldn't go and attack them. So it's kind of their own fault for not putting up that sign, because we all know that that's the most simplistic way to stop crime.
By screaming, please don't. Yeah, that's worked throughout the ages.
Don't do it. This is a gun-free zone. The criminal's like, oh, my bad.
It stopped Genghis Khan. Actually, wait, no, it didn't. Nothing stopped him.
It's also important to note that
Ian, time stops.
Time.
So
his beautiful wife.
While this is happening in Pennsylvania, in places like New York City, they're spending government resources. They're going up in Times Square and making sure to notify people that they cannot legally carry arms, and that Times Square is a gun-free zone, essentially saying, hey, criminals, if you do have a gun, which most criminals you do during this crazy day and age, and they don't follow the gun laws, that if they have any victims, the victims won't be able to defend themselves. That's essentially what they're saying. That's essentially what they're doing. At least Pennsylvania, there is still, as of right now, some kind of semblance of ability of human beings to be able to defend themselves. And sadly, we're going towards a society where if you have money, you could have protection, you could have security. If you don't have money, you're screwed.
You know what my favorite thing is when politicians like Ilhan Omar, who called to abolish the police, are then surrounded by private security.
Oh, yeah.
I always love to see it.
I grew up with this in Chicago. All these politicians would be like, guns should be banned, and then they're allowed to carry guns. The politicians, and then not only that, they have the rich people, the wealthy Democrat types voting for this stuff have armed guards.
It's like, when the Pelosi's were shocked that a crazed crackhead in San Francisco broke into their home. It's like, congratulations, that's what happens to the people of San Francisco every day. You're not special.
You're talking about that dude that apparently hit Paul Pelosi with a hammer? I feel like they're railroading that guy. Like, I think Paul knew that guy and they're railroading
He's claiming he's innocent.
Yeah, he said he was innocent. Paul was smiling and laughing.
Interesting story.
I heard that security guard you mentioned that got executed in Philly. I heard he survived.
Oh, good.
This is
Well,
on the
she had
show.
execution style.
Okay. Yeah, but I think he survived is what
Good.
came up on the show a little while ago.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't know. I think like Media Matters wrote something about, we were talking about the Paul Pelosi attack, and they wrote some nonsense where it's like they believe weird conspiracies. And I was like, the whole segment was that we didn't know what really happened because the police keep changing their story. But if you in any way question the narrative, that means you're a conspiracy theorist. It's like, bro, I don't have a theory. I was like, the police changed their story. We don't know what happened.
My favorite thing was when, what was it, MSNBC or NBC suspended their own reporter for accidentally telling the truth about that story. R.I.P. to...
He's still gone.
He's still suspended.
That's
he hasn't
what
come
happens
back to
when
work.
you tell the truth on mainstream. Don't do it. Don't do it, guys.
Could you imagine like you're a reporter and you get an email? It's like, come to HR, and they're like, yeah, Miguel, we have troubling reporting coming in from coworkers. Did you tell the truth on air? Well, I did. I'm sorry, but thank you for being honest, or not. You're suspended.
It's like, look, it specifically says on line 4 of your contract that you're not supposed to tell the truth, so you're gonna have to get fired. Sorry, my guy.
They have like a Sarlacc pit, and they're like, they just push him in.
Dude, that's our media. It's like how Amy Robach is currently in the news right now for having an affair with one of her co-hosts, but she wasn't in the news back in 2 years ago when she knew about Jeffrey Epstein and kind of just overlooked it. Really,
it's
funny
amazing.
How
well, let's break that down. I mean, you get this. She gets booted when I think it was Daily Mail that found out that. So this is an ABC news anchor. Her and her co-host were like hooking up, and I think like they got a photo of him smacking her butt or something.
Yeah,
so they take her off the air.
Yep.
But when she got caught, when she was on a hot mic and camera talking about how they had the Epstein story and Veritas releases this, they were like...
How she had the Clintons, how she had victims coming forward, how she had to feel horrible after interviewing, having these women trust her to do this story and then let them down because some executive at ABC said, no, we're going to be protecting this larger child trafficking and extortion operation, which is being protected by the intelligence agencies. Come on.
But an affair is where we draw the line.
Yes.
Can't do that. Can't do that.
Absolutely disgusting society that again, has a lot of hypocrisy in it. And if you... And this is what we know. Imagine what we don't know. Imagine all the things that are happening behind the scenes that are still being done in secret, that it's still unknown to the general public. You can only imagine how more debaucherous, how more insane things get.
Dude, the fact that we saw the entire Balenciaga campaign just, out and open to the public, it's like, I don't know if I want to know what we don't know.
I'd rather know. I have my theories. I like to talk about some of these theories, but I can't sometimes on YouTube.
Are they conspiracy theories?
I think conspiracy theories now are spoiler alerts for the general public, because when we look at what's been happening the last few years, I mean, it's just time after time. The whole agenda, the whole narrative has been collapsing. Everything that they try to shove down our throat, everything that they're trying to tell us is lies, and it's all being unraveled every single day. It's crazy.
Remember when Alex Jones went on Rogan and talked about like multidimensional beings, cell towers, hybrids? I'm just like, at this point, I have very little doubt left in me. Now I'm kind of just like, I don't know.
Dude, if Hillary Clinton shed her skin on camera and became a lizard person, I'd be like, I'm not surprised.
I get it. I'd be like,
I get it.
Put another penny in the Alex Jones jar.
She sideways blinks, like her eyes go like that.
You're just like, old news. We already knew it.
Her tongue comes out and licks her eye. And you're like,
Picks up the loogie she puts in her glass.
I hate that clip.
It's so why I'm
you know what they're doing it for? It's so that when the aliens land, we go, we get it. Just land.
Which they've already been releasing these documents, like, the government has been talking to FBI or alien, entities for years, and everyone's like, cool.
Yeah, proof is. I'll believe it when I see it. Even then, I probably won't believe it.
No, I think the opposite. I like. An alien will walk up to me and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I have no doubt left in me. You know what I mean? Like, so much weird stuff has happened over the past few years.
Tim would be like, please take me away. Please, God.
Well, I mean, it depends. If it was like the Federation and they were like, we're going to leave Earth and it's petty nonsense, I'd be like, But no, what I mean is like...
It would be over in the news cycle within a week.
Right.
Oh, Hillary Clinton shapeshifted. Next week, Donald Trump wants to end the Constitution. Next week, and some other bumps. Again, it literally would be just a blip in our headlines, in the way we're consuming news.
It would be page 20 of like the New York Times, and it would be like a small paragraph like, earlier today, Hillary Clinton was revealed to be a shape-shifting lizard person after shedding her skin during a campaign run. And it would not even be front page. Front page would be like Jim Bob from West Virginia suspected of being January 6th Capitol rioter, front page.
Or some woke, stupid idea about some kind of actor portrayals or racism or other nonsense that is meant to divide and conquer us.
Men in Black, where they have the tabloids and they're telling the truth about what's really going on about the aliens or whatever, and everyone's like, yeah, whatever, it's fake news. That's just our modern day now.
I'll just point this out. We're making jokes about like how shocking it would be if Hillary Clinton shed her skin. We have the super chat from Third Eye Sag, who says, kind of like how Cuomo got pushed out of office over a sex scandal instead of murdering 15,000 people.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why would the government attack him for that? They do that every single day, you know?
Yeah, they're probably sitting around and they're like, well, the public is pretty mad that Cuomo killed 15,000 people. But we don't want to come down on him because what if we want to kill 15,000 people later?
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't get a Nobel Peace Prize for that.
The government was
seriously.
like, well, actually, we asked you to do 30,000, so you came under par, but...
That's why they actually got him out.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
were like, we're not going to get you out of office for the 15,000, but you did come in underperforming, so we're going to use a sex scandal to fire you.
We instituted you for depopulation and you failed, so you're fired. Have fun.
That's just the craziest thing. You know, looking at the Canadian euthanasia stuff.
I was looking at that today. It was like die with honor or dignity or
Right.
something.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane.
The media tries to come out, these corporate journalists, and say like there's no depopulation agenda. And it's like, what do you think, what is it called when Bill Gates goes on stage at a TED conference and says, if we work really hard, we can reduce global population growth by 15%. That's population reduction. That's a depopulation agenda. Yep. Like, I don't understand how that's not a thing when the dude went on stage at TED and said it.
It's a population retardation, meaning a slowing of the growth of the population. It's not really a reduction. It's more of a sloth.
Everything coming out of Canada right now is absolutely insane, though. I believe I was reading a story about this 23-year-old who had diabetes, and the Canadian government's response was, die.
Yeah.
And that's basically it now. That's our healthcare system. You should probably just die.
You know, regarding this government, the problems people have been having with the government, I'm confused. Right now I see the liberal economic order. This is when I say our government, I consider it the liberal economic order. It's well established. George Bush Sr. established. It's transitioning to a new world order. It's a global order now. Why would the liberal economic order go to odds with Russia when we're trying to create global governance in our image? Why would we stifle and alienate one of our greatest potential allies?
Because they won't bend the knee.
Mm-hmm.
You need conflict.
But
Russia and Vladimir Putin have made statements saying that specifically they want to be a part of the new world order. They want to have a seat at the table, and the United States and the other Western powers are saying, no, everything's for us at the table. Russia's saying, we just want to sit there.
But the reality is BRICS, China is just as much as part of this as the liberal economic order, the BRICS order. So, like, why are we not vying for Russian alliance?
Let me tell you. From CNN, Putin signs expanded anti-LGBTQ laws in Russia in latest crackdown on rights.
I was just about to say this.
Is that what they're calling it, huh? So the new laws make it illegal to promote or praise LGBTQ relationships, publicly express non-heterosexual orientations, or suggest that they are normal. The package of amendments signed by Putin include heavier penalties for anyone promoting non-traditional sexual relations and or preferences, as well as pedophilia and gender transition. Under the new law, it will be banned across the internet, media, books, audio, visual services, cinema, and advertising. So Ian was just asking why the U.S. is trying to go to war with Russia. Well, the U.S. is very much in favor of all of these things, and Russia opposes them.
Well, I think it's not just like that. I think when we look at examples like Saudi Arabia, they commit far more atrocious things than what happens in Russia, and there far more is a bigger cultural difference with Saudi Arabia than Russia. I think it's even deeper than this. There's another article by Fox News that I think is worth pulling up, and it's titled "Wall Street CEOs Funding China's Military and Human Rights Abuses. Here's Why." And when we look at the rise of China, it is partly responsible because of many Western elites, the Rockefellers, Henry Kissinger, and of course a lot of the foreign policy that shipped American jobs and labor overseas. So there is an effort to globalize the world, but more importantly, control the world. And in China, you see a lot of very powerful billionaires in America financing that movement. You see Bill Gates, you see Klaus Schwab saying they're doing great work when they're locking people inside of their homes and there's fires there and literally people die because of these fires. Now when we see when we look at this COVID zero policy, these are policies that a lot of people want to implement all over the world. So why is Russia at odds here and China isn't? Well, that should be something that should have a lot of people thinking what's really going on here, because it's not just cultural differences. I think there's a bigger agenda trying to make China a perfect example for the rest of the world. I think that's what they're going after. I think that's what they're trying.
What's the situation with the Chinese riots, revolution? I mean, it looks like people all across the country were stepping up in crowds and like overthrowing the government. I mean, it looks like that's what they were attempting to do. What's going on there?
That's what I was saying. I mean, I saw that Klaus Schwab said that the Chinese model, needed to be implemented everywhere else. And then the Chinese people themselves were pushing back because, they're dying in these fires. They're still being locked up by their government. They have their QR codes that dictate where they can travel, if they can leave or not. So as far as I'm concerned, the Chinese are still pushing back. I'm not sure. We all know that it's very difficult to see what's actually happening on the ground.
Yeah, it's very hard to verify all the news coming from there, because there are some reports saying that the Chinese government is getting rid of restrictions, getting rid of some lockdowns, and allowing people to quarantine inside of their own homes. But there's also more video footage of police officers and these, white hooded crazy individuals busting down doors and asking and demanding people's cell phones so they could go through all the data, making sure that they didn't share anything through Bluetooth, and also
through
more
AirDrop.
AirDrop, which Apple isn't a big fan of and has stopped in China. Very interestingly, the same Apple that of course makes very grand statements about George Floyd here domestically, and makes very big statements about injustice here domestically, but doesn't seem to really care about it when it's at their Foxconn factory facilities that are up in arms and revolting.
So. Well, we want cheap stuff,
Yeah.
I want to work. Come on.
I wonder if you could make it so when someone bought an item, they felt the pain and suffering of every human that made the item, and then that would have to decide if they were going to buy it or not. You have to feel that whenever.
There's
you
an
use
interesting question about that, though. For some of these people who, this is the way it's often described when people are positive towards like sweatshop labor. They say these people live in underdeveloped regions. Are they better off with no money per day starving, or $1 per day working? What do you think?
I mean, that's
probably working.
See, I guess the issue is it's none of our effing business. It would be better if an American worker was getting $15 an hour to do that same labor, and they can figure out their own issues. You want to invest in the development of that nation, by all means, go ahead and do so. That sounds fantastic. Sounds very nice of you to help these people, rise up, become better, and build better lives. But why take jobs and industry from the United States, where American workers need these jobs, and then send them over to these countries because it's effectively slave labor?
Because they can sell the iPhone for $700 instead of $1,900, what it would cost if we built it over in the United States, probably.
Well, look, if they built it here, the iPhone would still cost the same thing. Their margins would be lower. So they build it over there, ship it back here. My favorite story is how they make skateboards. They cut down trees in Canada, send those trees to China, where they're turned into skateboards and then sent to California to get put into warehouses and distributed across the U.S. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But it's because it is cheaper to burn all of that energy sending lumber to China than it is just to pay a North American worker to do work. That's insane. Yeah. That's look, when they talk about climate change and all that stuff, supporting the American worker, one of the best things you can do to prevent climate change. Stop overdeveloping other nations. How about that? You're concerned about carbon? Then stop building factories in these countries. You want to reduce climate change? Stop burning all the fuel. Stop shipping goods to China for manufacturing. Just do it here.
Yeah. Stop planned obsolescence. Stop these products being made in a way that they break down within a year or 2 years, so you have to buy a new one. Again, this larger kind of consumerism, this larger quasi-corporate, quasi-government policy that has been instituted on everyone doesn't work in anyone's favor and is essentially a larger scam against everyone. So this is what we need to realize. Everything, everywhere we look, it's a scam. How else can you answer that question?
You mean like capitalism is a scam?
No.
You said everything everywhere.
Spit that word. I'm saying the way that the system is designed, the way that the system runs, the way that the system has been finagled for the personal benefit of a lot of these billionaires that do support China, that want China to be an example for the rest of the world. That right there is rigged. Apple is supporting the Chinese government. The U.S. government is now dependent on the Chinese government, on those factories, on everything being shipped to the United States, including, of course, our medicine, our vitamins, our supplements, all the plastic, all the trinkets, all of that is being made in China right now, and we are dependent on it because we got rid of our own industry. We got rid of our own infrastructure. Right. We took the jobs. We took the factories. We had them here. We had the infrastructure to make things that would actually last, would actually be good, and we said, no, we're just going to send them over to China to run this larger Ponzi scheme on everyone. And the person who did it was David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger with their open China policy. Kissinger still is being adored by Donald Trump, adored by Joe Biden, adored by Obama. Obama's national security advisor said that they took their daily orders from Henry Kissinger. This guy's still calling the shots here. This is absolutely crazy and bewildering that we're living in a society where we're just being scammed every single day.
How old is Kissinger? He's still around?
Yes, he's still around. He's still giving speeches.
I think he's 99. Didn't he? 99? Was he the architect of the Vietnam War?
I don't know if you could call him the architect, but there was many human rights violations that he committed in Cambodia, in the south of Asia, in Chile, in Latin America, in the Middle East. This guy is also the figurehead of the petrodollar. I mean, this guy's behind almost every nook and corner of secret society, whether it's the Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, or the Bilderberg Group. This guy's behind all of these organizations, calling the shots, essentially telling people what to do.
He's 99, by the way.
Yeah. But see, when he passes, is there anyone who can take that mantle and provide that same advice or control?
There's probably a whole bunch of other people that are in secret, his underlings. Klaus Schwab was working.
Kissinger Jr.'s?
Yeah. Klaus Schwab was working with Henry Kissinger very closely as well. They're very closely associated. Klaus Schwab was a student of Kissinger. So that's another human being. But the next person we're not going to be hearing about. The next person is working in secret, is working in the shadows. And they're implementing policies. They're probably setting the policies right now that we don't even know about.
I'm concerned that they're not American, that they're like corporate, they live in Switzerland.
They're globalists.
Right.
They don't care about America. They never cared about America.
Like
they never gave a damn about this country. David Rockefeller bragged in his own autobiography how he specifically wanted to destroy American sovereignty. These are individuals that openly brag. I came up to David Rockefeller. I was like, you said this in your book. How dare you? He got mad and then ran in his car. But at the end of the day, these people love to brag about how they're destroying this larger experiment that in the first time in almost all of recorded human history has allowed individuals to have rights and the ability to defend themselves. That is their chief mortal enemy that they are trying to get rid of at all costs. They want you to be fat. They want you to be sad. They want you to not be able to defend yourself. They want you to be a slave, and that's essentially the system that they're building. How else can you say it's not being built?
I kind of think they don't want you to exist at all.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not that they want you to die. It's that they don't want you to be alive.
Honestly, I think that's why we're going to see this big push as well for transhumanism and Neuralink, because that's the next natural step to this. I feel like, the TikTok generation where everyone is tied to their phones, we have this entire generation that is very subservient because they're so tied to their phone, they're so distracted that they're not paying attention to what's actually happening in the modern day, which is why the government is so easily able to come in and usher in all of these totalitarian rule and whatnot. The next natural progression to that is transhumanism. I know Libby Emmons was talking about how, you get the chip implanted in your brain. At that point, how do you know what is your own thought or a thought being implemented via AI? And then at that point, are you just another product of technology? Are you just another, what was the word that she used? I can't remember off the top of my head, but essentially, yeah, everything's just going to crap, guys.
There are two shows that I would recommend. There's an episode of Stargate SG-1 where they go to so for the, you know Stargate, there's a portal, they go through it, they find other planets. And so in one, they send in this drone first, and it's like a wasteland. Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden, there's like a flash, and they're in this beautiful looking city. And what it is this planet had a pollution problem, everybody dies, but there's this force field surrounding this small town. Everybody's networked to this machine, and there's 1,800 people who live here. What they eventually discover is that initially the city had millions, but the power is running out, so the force field is shrinking and people are dying. So to maintain the system, people have to be culled. So the computer was wiping their brains of memories of people who were being sacrificed, and they didn't know. So they meet a guy. Then like later in the day, they watch the guy walk out to his death, and they're like, what was that? And they're like, who are you talking about? That person never lived here. We've always been a small city. Then there's an episode of Outer Limits where it's called The Stream or something, where there are these like Wi-Fi nodes everywhere and everybody's like got a brain chip, and they don't realize that their thoughts are implanted. They think they're individuals. They think they're living their normal life, but they're acting at the behest of the machine or whatever.
And that's the danger of the brain chip. And I just kind of wanted to ask you, Savanah, really quickly, and then we could go to Ian.
You're echoing what I'm thinking.
But I just want to ask you specifically, what do you think the end game is? What do you think is their goal?
I think the end game is to create an entire population that is subservient to the government, that is, tied to AI, transhumanism, where we're not fighting back, we're not pushing back. Why is censorship so important right now? Because we are highlighting that these issues are prevalent and that they're happening. But the government wants to come in and they want everybody to be distracted. One of the things that I focus in on, and I've been thinking about this a lot because there's a part of me that thinks sometimes that what I do is useless, because I can sit here all day long and scream to high heaven about what is happening in society, but it really is up to the masses to actually act on it, right? So what is the true solution to this? And the true solution is traditional family and instilling that, because, for example, the New York Post just put out this article that talked about these parents having to send their kids to counseling because of all of the drug abuse that's happening, and these kids are being exposed to it. It's horrifying them. These parents are the ones that are thinking of moving out of the big cities. Crime rates and drug use are affecting these people specifically because they have a family, and that's at the forefront from them. That's why in our society today, we're trying to destroy traditional values, destroy traditional family, because then the average person doesn't really care about what's going on. Then the average person is just tied to their cell phone. They don't really care. Okay, they'll live in the pod, they'll watch porn all day. They're I guess living off of the whatever app that they're living through. Sorry, I'm like completely butchering this, but the point that I'm trying to make here is I feel like the ultimate end game is to have an entire population that's not going to push back against a one world government.
Yeah, that very much scares me about implanting memory. I think you're really onto something with that, because memory itself is flawed. No human has perfect memory. I think the things I think may or may not have been what really happened. Sometimes I'm just wrong. I'll say it and I'll go back and I'll review the tape and I'll be like, oh, what I remembered was different than what happened. I can only imagine that. I mean, with TV and radio, like that's already manipulating our thoughts and memories. I think you might be onto it. Like a muted or docile populace is helpful for a government in some ways, so that the populace doesn't overtake the government.
Exactly.
Let's do a hard segue into this story with Alex Jones. We had this from Timcast.com. Quote, "Burn in hell, Hitler." Alex Jones comments on Ye interview. Quote, "I felt like I was sucked into a giant publicity stunt," said the InfoWars host. So everybody remembers what happened when Ye went on Alex Jones. He also went on with Gavin McInnes. And I guess what Alex was saying is that before the show, they agreed not to talk about that stuff. Then when the show went on the air, that's all they talked about. And he feels like it was a big publicity stunt.
I think Alex, his comments were pretty interesting. He said that Kanye had a 5th grade level understanding of Hitler. He also challenged Nick Fuentes to a debate about history and specifically World War II. There was also a reference to him potentially being a homosexual. So Alex kind of went off a little bit here. I don't know if he felt pressure, but we got to understand Alex was the man that has been talking about Prescott Bush. He's been talking about Margaret Sanger. He's been talking about a lot of American elites financing this larger eugenics, depopulation, Nazi World War II kind of movement. This was kind of his moment to kind of bring it back. Some people are saying he should have brought it back when Ye was on and pushed back a little bit more, but that's up to people's own interpretations of how they saw the interview. I don't know. What did you think of that interview? And what do you think about his latest comments now talking about 5th grade level understanding of World War II?
I think that the interview that Alex did with Ye was really important because it highlighted why the First Amendment is important. In the sense of the reason why I'm a free speech absolutist is because I think that you should allow your enemy or just anybody in society, right, to really say what they think about certain issues. I think that free speech is so effective because it essentially allows people to expose themselves, to expose what they really think, to expose, and allows the public as well to decide if their views are good or bad. So I think, Ye going on with Alex not really pushing back was a good way for the public to really, I guess, delve into what Kanye actually thought about this issue. Regarding what Alex is saying now, I do think that Kanye is being used by the people that are around him. I'll be honest with it. Tim, you disagree with me on this?
Look, when we hear that Alex is saying that they agreed to talk about this stuff, about Hitler and all that, and then they did anyway, and he felt like it was a publicity stunt. That's exactly what I was saying it felt like.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the whole thing was planned out. So a couple points, and maybe it's being a dead horse, but, Ye went on with Gavin McInnes. We'll talk about that. But a couple points like, they initially asked us for a return flight right after the show. We couldn't do it. It was not that we were told by we couldn't get a flight. It wasn't possible. They ended up getting a private plane ready to go right afterwards. They also said, we'll talk about the campaign, the plans, and then immediately jumped into this stuff. Same thing you do with Alex Jones. So the other thing, too, is when I look at what happened with Gavin McInnes, Ye is just saying the craziest possible things. He's doing it again. I want to give a shout out to Viva Frey and Robert Barnes, because Barnes made a really, really great point. Something that we missed, obviously. And it's that Ye's talking about this tax liability that he's got, $50 million or whatever, and they're trying to put him in jail. And he was saying that we didn't notice and we should have pressed on it. He's right. Maybe Ye is trying to appear crazy so he doesn't go to prison, so that he can come off as like mentally unwell. He didn't intentionally. What did Barnes say? The example he gave was that Ye's going to come out with the defense that the reason he didn't pay taxes, he was scared that it was going to go to the Jewish people or something like that. Like he'll make up an excuse so it sounds like he's unhinged, and then he gets a slap on the wrist minimum security thing instead of like a serious 25-year tax evasion thing. So Ye goes on with Gavin McInnes, and he says, what did he do? He called for Jewish people to forgive Hitler. It's just really, really out there is putting it lightly. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. And in it, this is amazing. Gavin McInnes is like, when you meet someone, you judge them like by the individual, right? And he's like, I don't. Ye just outright says it. There's no way. Okay, like here's my issue. I think Barnes may be right about him trying not to go to jail for tax evasion or whatever the issue is, but like it seems like Kanye is pretending to be crazy poorly. You know what I mean? Like, maybe not. Maybe because people believe it. They're like, how could he say such things? Like, well, he's just saying stupid, crazy, and outrageous things.
He's always been crazy and outrageous. That's why, for me, I feel like it's him being used by the people around him to push a specific message or narrative, whether or not he agrees with that. I don't know. I've been a Kanye West fan for a long time. I also have not met him in person like you guys have, so I feel like my commentary is based on what I'm seeing in the headlines. You guys have more of a background to it.
He was totally different before the cameras rolled.
Off camera.
Totally different. And I kind of wish we kind of filmed a little bit just to give people a perspective, because everything was very cordial, very, understanding. A lot of the craziness and nonsense wasn't there. And then the cameras went on. It was like a different person was sitting there, a different vibe, a different energy, and everything just changed in the room.
See, I think he got just like MK Ultra'd by Hollywood. So,
but this is the thing. Everything we're hearing, like the things he said on Alex Jones, the thing he said on Gavin McInnes, the things he said here is only what people saw publicly. Right. That's why I thought the behind the scenes things with him that we did was so important, because for whatever reason you watch that video and he's just like, he's very, very calm, very chill. He's like walking up to Luke and he's like, we got to figure out how to get better food in this house. He looks at me and he's like, we should put him in charge of getting the food. That'd be really great.
Yeah.
Totally different. Camera goes on and he appears to lose it. It looks like a performance. He goes on Alex Jones wearing a Balenciaga gimp mask, and then he's got a net and he's going, hey Kanye, don't be meeting with them. We're gonna take your kids. And it's you're looking at this like, is this guy out of his mind? Yeah. But you see him off camera before the show, and he's having an intelligent, normal conversation with you. Right. As soon as the camera turns on, come on, man. Alex Jones is right. Put some money in the jar. Whoever's here, go down to where Alex Jones is right jar. Put money in. He said he felt like he was in one big publicity stunt. I think he's right.
Yeah. But at the same time, in a court of law, being allegedly anti-Semitic isn't an excuse for an insanity, though. Insanity.
Well, what Barnes was saying is that Kanye will come out and say he didn't pay taxes because it's going to go to all the Jewish people who control everything. That would be his weird, crazy excuse or something.
It'll be interesting to look at what was it, Wesley Snipes? It would be interesting to look.
Saying?
I think that was the example that he referenced. It would be interesting to look at that particular case and see exactly what happened there, just to get a reference of how that previously played out to how what might be the strategy here. But who knows at the end of the day? What do you think, Ian?
Well, I'm glad
you're more of an empath and intuitive person.
I was thinking about this as like for the long term. Like, where is this along the path of humanity when we look back in 1,000 years? Like, what was happening right now? And what will they remember it happening? I think what's happening is, crazy is Kanye's waking up a bunch of Jewish people and pointing them to God. Like last night on that Gavin McInnes interview, I'll explain it. Gavin was like, I don't
know
think,
about that one, Ian.
Yeah, Gavin's like, because Nick was saying, there's a cabal, or they were saying there's a cabal of people that are preventing Kanye from, getting to another echelon of wealth or whatever. There's a cabal, and Kanye's like, it's the Jewish people. And Gavin was like, I don't think they're Jewish. If you don't believe in God, you're not Jewish. And it's something I said last week too. So Gavin, if you're listening, hell yeah, dude, nice one. And it's true. And I think
no, that's not true.
Let me finish, please.
I understand, but I want to like, if you make a point, just explain. If you make like 12 points in a row, we can't address all of them. It's called the Gish Gallop. So if you said a few things right now that I think need to be addressed. One, you can be ethnically Jewish and not religious.
Yeah, well, I think you need a different word for that.
Okay, well, that's an important thing to make.
It's like saying the word means two different things. It's nonsense. The word means something. What does the word mean? What does Jewish mean? Okay, let's define it and move on. Give me two definitions.
You can say religiously, or you can say ethnically. Then, right?
Well, I'm just talking about the word. What does the word mean? Let's be specific. The word means that you're Jewish, meaning what? That you're a Jew, meaning what? That you believe in God. That's the tenet of Judaism. That's like the tenet.
I'm pretty sure we have people here who are ethnically Jewish.
Their parents were, like, if your great-great-grandparents were Jewish, then that doesn't mean that you are. You got to believe in it. It's a process. It's like an understanding. My thoughts are that what's going to happen is people are realizing, like, if you're a fallen Jew, if you've like no longer believe in this and you're just this atheist taking advantage of people, you're going to realize that God is great. That it's like, it's there for all of us. So we're all in this together. And I think that what's happening is there's going to be a revelation within Judaism and probably all the major religions on earth, that there's going to be some sort of a transformation where people come back to the faith. And Kanye will be looked at as someone that saved the Jews.
A reformation.
Yeah.
I just have to say,
how?
Ian,
because he returned them to God.
I think this may be one of the most insane things I've ever heard you say.
Sure, man. I'm talking about what people, people, they're often told they're crazy when they're talking about stuff like this.
Let me just clarify a few things. Kanye West said he said Jewish people aren't allowed to be in control of things. He said the only way he would allow them to work for them if he could put cameras in their houses and spy on them. And you think that's him saving them?
Well, I think Savanah's onto something that Nick has been tweaking his mind the last 2 weeks with a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff. Nick, when he was pressed, when Gavin told Nick, I don't think they're Jewish. I think if you don't believe in God, you're not Jewish. And Nick was like, okay, maybe these people aren't Jewish. Maybe it's godless people, atheists. Okay, maybe. But then immediately Nick switched to like, but Jesus Christ is the king and is the great God. And it's the same stuff Kanye's been splattering, like this deep Christian belief stuff. Like, you got to get out of that and become like, so yeah, but I agree with you. Kanye has said some madly racist stuff in the last, see, that's the thing. Is it race? It's not even a race. It's a religion. It's so confusing on purpose.
There's an ethnicity as well.
It's the only religion on earth that happens to have an attached
Savannah? Savannah, you look like you want to say something.
This might get me canceled, but my legitimate question, I guess, for the entire movement, because you know what? I'm at the point where I do feel like the term anti-Semitism has been extremely overused. I am. And I want to know your guys' viewpoint on, okay, can we legitimately criticize the Jewish community or people who are Jewish that are in power? Are we allowed to criticize that, or is that anti-Semitism? Because I think what this is linking to is that broader conversation. And I think a lot of people in the right wing do have that question. I would like your guys' viewpoints on it, because I think this is something that a lot of people question, but we don't really talk about.
I think if you just hate somebody, that's hatred. That's because of how they were born or how they look or their religion. That's wrong. But I think governments should be criticized, no matter what kind of government it is, including the Israeli government or Israeli individuals. So I think that's the distinction that I see myself.
Gavin McInnes made a point. He said, when you meet someone, they're a blank slate. You treat them as an individual. And so the issue with the Ye stuff is. He mentioned Jon Stewart. I mentioned Dave Chappelle. They both made a similar point. in Hollywood and media, there's a lot of Jewish people. The problem is Kanye explicitly stated in more than one interview, he lumps all of them together regardless of what that really means. So like, I think the issue is, if you take a look at Harvard, Asian people are overrepresented in Harvard. It does not mean you go up to an Asian person and be like, this person must be good at math. You know, it's you treat the individual like the individual. Me growing up in Chicago with my friends, we had some Asian friends who were as dumb as a box of rocks. Then, of course, you see the tropes about certain things. What I end up learning, I should say, in my view, the reason Asians may be overrepresented in Harvard is because the culture that they inherit, its cultural elements, are studiousness and punctuality, and it's like strictness and authoritativeness and authoritarian, like we see in the Chinese Communist Party. So you look at people who come from that culture, they're going to have a very, very distinct and strict way of raising their kids. Those kids are more likely to exhibit certain behaviors, like they're going to be studious. If I were to come out and just be like, wow, that proves it. Asian people are all one way or another. It's just not correct. So the issue is, when people say the issue is Jewish people, it's the same thing as the left saying Asians should have a higher standard to get in college because they're Asian. And I'm like, no, none of that. A person comes up to me, I say, who are you? What do you want? What does this mean? I don't think Asians are conspiring to get into colleges. Asians are suing to keep people out of colleges. Well, there are people who are Asian who are suing Harvard, but it's because Harvard's making it hard on these individuals who may not have, I'll put it this way, poor working class Asian people being told they can't go to Harvard is, to me, completely insane. Completely insane. And I'm not going to blame all Asian people for filing lawsuits against Harvard, because Harvard is concerned that more Asians means less Hispanics or black people.
You know what? I think it's all white guys that are responsible for all of our wrongs, all of our ills. Everything wrong in this society is because of white guys. I say that as a proud person of color. And whenever we do this, I think it needs to be called out, especially when it comes to kind of generalizations. I think we should always try to be more specific. But again, if you have hatred for somebody, that's just because of the way they are. That's just wrong. That's just how I plainly see it.
See, and okay, so this is my legitimate questioning too. And for example, Kyrie Irving, Nike just dropped him, right? Because he shared a link to an allegedly anti-Semitic documentary. I've never seen the documentary myself, so maybe it is anti-Semitic, I'm not sure. But when people call that out and say, okay, why do we see this consistent pattern of people sharing something, the media immediately labeling it as anti-Semitism, this person getting canceled, this is a pattern that we have seen a time or two. Why is it that we're not allowed to speak about this? Again, this is just me questioning these things.
But we are speaking about it right now. The story about Kyrie Irving has been talked about a whole lot, and it's cancel culture, and we think it's wrong. Like, Luke has the Kyrie Irving jersey that he puts up periodically. I think people should be entitled to free speech. They should be allowed. Like in 2018, when Twitter started banning people, alt-right individuals, I did an interview with Insider. It was Oliver Darcy saying, like, this is wrong. They shouldn't be doing this. Right. It's weird to me that people are acting like the issue with Kanye West and what he's saying about Jewish people is unique. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there's tons of instances where people have said something offensive and then gotten canceled over it, and we've argued that shouldn't be happening.
What happened to Kyrie is absolutely insane, and I think he had a big target on his back, especially with what happened within the last few years with him standing up for his personal freedom to choose not to be vaccinated. He was punished by a lot of people. The corporate media attacked him, and I think they're just looking for any reason just to try to get him out of the discourse, just to try to stop him as much as they can. And he literally tweeted, I don't think it was even a link. I think it was a photo. I think it was a poster for a documentary. They also tried to get him in trouble for posting clips from Alex Jones. Yeah. So he's an individual that I routinely put, the jersey behind, because I think he's unfairly punished. I think a lot of the stuff that he's going through is absolutely ridiculous. He donated $500,000 to the ADL. He apologized for sharing a link without even giving it for sharing a photo of a documentary without even giving it any context. And they still decided to punish him and cancel it. That's over, and that's crazy. And I agree with you. That's something that deserves pushback on. But when someone is hateful against someone else, they should be called out as well, right?
It's not unique to Jewish people. I'll give you a few examples. Netflix executive, this is I think in 2018, was giving examples of hate speech, saying the slurs. So people in the meeting went to HR and complained. They called him in and they said, what did you say? And he's like, I was explaining these are words that shouldn't be used on Netflix specials. What words? He said it. They went, they fired him. You had the race car driver whose dad in the 80s used the N-word on the radio. So sponsors pulled out from him. He didn't even do anything. Yeah. Cancel culture is insane. I think it's and I get all of the woke, crazy leftist organizations writing articles about it because I said the Alex Jones interview with Ye was good because it shows us exactly what Ye believes. And immediately people were like, hey man, I don't want to be associated. I don't like that. Those are bad ideas. I don't think we should shut down people's lives, take away their banks, destroy everything because they think things that I think are stupid or wrong.
Right.
I think we just speak up, we have conversations like this and explain why we think they're wrong.
I mean, look what happened to Salman Rushdie a couple weeks ago. I mean, that deserves to be discussed, I think, if we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff, when we're going to be talking about this conversation. Again, I think blanketly, it's just very easy to say, hey, you hate somebody because of the way that they're born, you're a jackass. And I think it's that simple. And I think at the end of the day, we should be going to that and not just using this as a way to divide and conquer people and use it as a way to control speech and to punish people for daring to express ideas. Because I think we also reached the stage in our society where comedy is being banned, where it's being vilified, where it's being stopped. Comedy used to bring people together. It used to make people laugh about our differences. We can't even have that anymore. We just have people afraid to even speak to each other. And that to me is an absolutely dangerous ingredient towards a society that is on the verge of collapsing.
Let me give you another example. Dave Chappelle and Jon Stewart both came out and made these statements that Kanye and I actually mentioned. Jon Stewart said something to the effect of, if you overuse the phrase anti-Semitic when someone points out there are a lot of Jewish people in Hollywood or in media or in finance, then this is what is breeding the conspiracies, basically. It's what's making people feel like their ideas may be correct. And if you want to have an honest conversation, you start with, yes, we do see in certain areas overrepresentation. That was Jon Stewart. Dave Chappelle made the joke where he said, if it's an Italian guy, it's the mob. If it's a black guy, it's a gang. And if it's a bunch of Jewish people, it's a coincidence. You're not allowed to talk about it. That was Dave Chappelle's joke. Jon Stewart and Dave Chappelle's lives have not been destroyed. They've talked about it. They've addressed it. It's come up here. The thing about what Kanye said is, Kanye praised Hitler, praised Nazis.
Kanye's on a different level from
Kanye said
else.
they're not allowed to control things, and he would only hire them if he can follow them home, put cameras in their house to prove they aren't spies. Like, okay, if you said that about any ethnic group, people are going to get mad at you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Kanye's just been an interesting example of bringing this conversation to the forefront. And again, too, it really was a test of freedom of speech, right? And who in the right wing, I guess, area really is truly pro-free speech, because granted, I don't agree with most of what Kanye said, probably all of what Kanye said. It was pretty crazy. But again, still support his right to say it. Same thing with Nick Fuentes. I still support their right to say it. And I think that's the beauty of the free speech, right? Is you allow your opponent to say exactly what they think, or just anybody in society, exactly what they think. And then society is allowed to dictate if they like it or not.
Well, you let the best idea win, and you have to counter bad ideas with good ideas. That's why I think we were trying to facilitate a conversation here to try to find out what the best idea was. And sadly, we didn't have that. But it would have been, contentious. It would have been interesting. But I think it's worthwhile to challenge bad ideas. And I think we need to do this more routinely than a lot of other people do it.
We got a super chat that I want to address before we go to super chats, because someone just mentioned is an interesting point. They said, you're still not listening to Sav. She's asking why you can say collusion between white people. White person abuses people, but it's not okay to say Jewish person. So let me explain from where I come from. My point is, I have routinely ragged on the left for blaming white people. It will not be any different when someone wants to blame Jewish people. I do not like people looking at someone and being like, you know what, I've made a decision about you just because you look a certain way. That's nonsense to me. I just don't think it's legitimate. Yeah. I remember I knew this Haitian guy when I worked at O'Hare, and he was complaining how people call him African American, but he's from Haiti. He's like, he's not from Africa. He's not American either. He's Haitian. Don't call me that. It's like this stupid, like, judging a person for this. I agree. The left, when they blame white people for everything, is ridiculous, and it's wrong. I also think it's wrong when people like Kanye or anyone else blame Jewish people for it. I also think it's wrong when people blame black people for it. I'm like, let's blame criminals. Let's blame thieves. Let's blame corruption, and let's try to figure out how we live and work together, and we don't blame each other just because we look a certain way. Because I'm imagining just the idea of just racism in general. It really does make me angry.
Same, yeah.
Like judging someone in any capacity without actually knowing who they are and knowing what they believe is a problem.
It's wrong.
Because then what? You're going to be a person who likes white people? Okay, guess what? All the Antifa people, overwhelmingly white. So it's certainly not white people that are good or better. No, because Antifa's out of their minds. Then you've got Latinos, you've got people from Cuba who love America more than these white Antifa. Yeah. That's just me. That's just me. I'm saying.
So they're self-hating white people, just like there's self-hating Jewish people.
You blame systems that breed these kinds of problems, like the Roman Empire is the white person problem is the Roman patriarchy. That thing created a church to get into people's minds. It tried to control the world. It's still trying to control the world through its church. Like, that's the white person problem, is the Roman patriarchy. That's a real thing. The Jewish problem is the banking cartels that were invented by Amschel Rothschild in the 1500s. His 3 sons went off to England, Italy, and France to make the Rothschild banking empire. It's the banking superstructure that's the problem, not the race or the culture. It doesn't matter what you look like. It's the behavior.
And I think Jones actually made that point, and then Ye admitted he was wrong. He said he shouldn't have blanketed all people and that it's actually about banking and stuff like that.
See, and that's the thing with Kanye that's inconsistent with his interviews is I feel like when he does get that pushback, he's like, okay, well, he'll capitulate that point, you know?
We looked up the CEOs of banks because we were talking with Michael Malice, and it's like the CEOs of a bunch of these banks are just white dudes.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, man.
From all over.
This is the problem I have. Mainly it's because I want to solve these problems. Why is the Federal Reserve ripping people off and destroying everything? Well, if you come out and just scream that it's someone's like religious background or ethnic background, I'm like, bro, that's not the problem. Is the system, and it's being supported by a whole bunch of people of all different backgrounds.
Yeah, how are you going to solve anything by saying, specifically, focusing on some of the outer details rather than the actual core issues of the problem and the effects of it?
It's like this. It's like a homeless white man has privilege and Oprah Winfrey is disadvantaged. Yeah, sorry, dude, I'm not buying that. When they come out and they say white people, this is white heteronormative patriarchy, I'm like, shut up, dude.
In New York City, they implemented resources in the official school board there that made sure this is at the head of the Department of Education in New York City that if you're a white student that's poor, resources shouldn't be going to you. They should be going to a rich black person, a black kid, mainly because of the institutionalized racism inside of that school or structure. That's the policies that are being implemented right now that are absolutely insane, that need to be pushed back on and are racist.
For the record, when it comes up again, Semite is more than just an Arab or more than just a Jew. It's an Arab, it's Phoenician, Akkadian. It's all those people from that southwestern Asian peninsula or area, not really peninsula. Those are all Semites. So if you hated Muslims during 2005, you were an anti-Semite, buddy. If you have anti-Muslim in you, you're an anti-Semite. I don't like that they act like it's only Jewish. It's like there's a lot of people. The Semitic people were a lot of different people.
Right. It's just another word for racism, essentially. That's what the ethnic and religious thing I think may have been getting confused for you there.
But it should be very clear when you use that word what it means. It does not mean Jewish person.
Right. There's tough challenges in this space. I think everybody gets it. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. 47th Street was just north of us. When you crossed it, the entire community was black. There was an area they called the LeClaire Courts. When people from when black people from north of 47th would come down south of 47th, and then there was this thing where a bunch of young girls would rob young girls south of 47th, and it was always a racial disparity. You'd see a lot of that. The cops wouldn't let you go north of 47th, and I'm like, look, man, I'm not stupid enough to think that this is the problem of someone's race. It's a problem of two distinct communities that don't see each other, and it may be a component of race. That's why they don't view each other as like part of the same community. But a lot of it was constructed. A lot of the project housing, the redlining, the block busting created this element. So when you go into areas where it's like mixed, everybody's getting along.
Right.
So I think what happens is a lot of people see something like that. They see these barrier streets. In New York, I lived in Crown Heights, and there was a split between the Jewish neighborhood and the black neighborhood, and they had shootouts because they were rival drug dealers.
Right.
A lot of people thought it was like a race war or an ethnic thing. And then I learned from the people actually involved, they were like, no, it's just because they're trying to sell drugs over here. Right. And so why is it that it was tended to be black people fighting against Jewish people was not the race. It was that if you lived in this area, the dealers you were working with, it was a Jewish neighborhood. If you lived in this area, the dealers you're working with, it was in a black neighborhood. This is like a deep problem in cities with racial segregation. And there's a lot of components to it that I think are real, notably that people choose to live in areas where people look like each other. That is what creates racism. Or as a component of it. Me personally, I'm going to try to avoid stereotyping someone based on experiences like that and let someone be an individual so they can be as worthy as they choose to be.
Yeah,
right?
man, groups and cabals and gangs are real. They're real. People can get together, and sometimes, you get with what you know. A lot of times that's the easiest thing, path of least resistance. If you speak the same language, I don't know if they look like you, maybe it's easier to identify. But just because groups are real doesn't mean that people aren't individuals. When you see their eyeballs, you realize the skin suit is almost irrelevant. The brainstem creature is like what we really are, floating in these meat sacks, pulling on electrodes, getting our bodies to move around. But you see the humanity in their eyes, man. You get right through that. I thought racism was gone in 2008. For there was a brief moment of a year where everyone was the same. And I use that word hyperbolically because I know we have genetic differences, but we're so similar.
Mm-hmm. In-group,
so freaking similar.
In-group, out-group situation.
I'll tell you this. We look at that poll, that data that shows that white liberals are the only group with an out-group preference. That shows that among black people, Asian people, Latino, they have an in-group racial preference. They are slightly more inclined to want to be around people who are of the same ethnic background or race. White conservatives, same thing. It's slight. It's not definitive. Liberals, the only with a negative. They don't like being around white people.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I think Tucker Carlson hit the nail on the head with a hammer when he said he's like, I'm not racist. It's white liberal women. They're the ones who are voting for all these policies and doing all these things.
I was a white liberal.
I'm like, is that racist and sexist though? Because you're calling out white women.
I didn't like being around only people. I was born in Cuyahoga Falls. They call it Caucasian Falls because it was like 99.9% white people, and I was disgusting. Like until I was 18, it was like racist, and I left, went to New York City, Chicago, LA. I just wanted to be around different cultures. That was the white liberal in me. I couldn't stand just being isolated in this one monoculture.
Why was it disgusting?
Because I knew there was more. I knew that racism wasn't right. It didn't sound right. I knew that I've seen.
How was it racist if it was like overwhelmingly white?
They would make racist jokes about other people, other races and stuff, and it was just like, if you were like, no, that's not good, then you get ostracized by the group of racists. And so I'm forced, like as a little kid, I don't want to say they're all racist, but I think there's just inherent racism in all of us from that environment, whereas like that was normal, and our parents had come from racist environments. I had to get out of it. I had to see the world. Then I went to South America, and man, that's like the other end of the spectrum where I was the odd man out, and that was a very lonely experience too. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I advise everyone get a chance to dip into another culture. I live down on Normal Avenue in LA, and it's every Sunday.
What does that mean?
It's like the Latino, man, they're getting wild on Sunday, They got the food carts going and everyone's dancing and playing music at church.
We used to have the elotes carts on the south side by Vinham Park, where I used to hang out, and then the mayor banned them.
Yeah.
They were only allowed on the other side of Cicero where all the billboards turned Spanish. Mm. That was deeply offensive to me because it was the most fun thing when the elotes cart pulled up and you had $1 and he shaved the corn into the cup with some mayo, some Parmesan, some cayenne pepper, stir it up, hand it to you. Yeah, a cup of corn. And then we don't know why, but there was like a rule put in place banning them from the west side of Cicero Avenue, and that just happens to be like a dividing line where you start seeing more Hispanic and Spanish billboards, and we were like, "Yo, what the man? We loved the elotes guy. He was cool."
Yeah,
and tamales. He had tamales too.
It was so great to witness the humanity and people of other. It's not race. It's not the word race isn't the right word. What's the word? What's the difference between like someone from Africa and someone from Ireland?
Culture, I guess.
Just different cultures?
Different cultures.
But if we're both born in the United States and we grew up across the street from each other, then what's the difference? What would you...
You're both American.
Yeah, I would still say it's more of a culture thing though, right?
Yeah.
But you said you felt isolated
in South America. That was interesting because I had the lightest skin, long hair. They would call me Thor from the movie because they were like, hey, this guy. And when I would walk down the street, people would be staring at me and looking at me. And it was like, I didn't speak their language very well. It was a very weird experience. I have a lot of more empathy towards people that might identify in an out group now.
I went to Thailand during Chinese New Year.
Where'd you go?
Bangkok.
Oh, cool.
And I can't remember exactly where we were, but it was this like big market avenue that went really far. And it was just crowded shoulder to shoulder with people. I could see over everyone's head. It was just, and like the person I was with, we were both like on average taller than everyone. And I was like, wow, like we're in this country. Everyone here is Thai. I'm like a foot taller than everybody. I'm like, or like, half a foot taller than everybody. Then I went to Sweden and I was just like looking up at everybody like, this is very interesting. Yeah, everybody was taller than me.
A good conversation to have is the conversation about genetics and the difference of genetics. They call it race realism sometimes. But I think that's an important free speech conversation to objectively identify differentials in genetics, but also acknowledge the similarity in our consciousness and our brains and our spines and stuff like that. But you got to be able to like with love, acknowledge the differences.
Tim, were you talking about Chatuchak?
What is it?
Just like the big, it's a famous market in Bangkok. I didn't check out the name.
I don't know. I went to this mall that was insanely huge, though, in Bangkok, where they were like, it was one of the biggest malls in the world or something like that.
Yeah. That's another
Yeah, I don't know. I also, before we're going to go to Super Chats, but I want to give a shout out to Roberto Jr., our rooster, because there's just something hilarious about when they're like a foot and a half tall, but when you walk in there, Roberto Jr. turns his head up to look you in the eyes. And I just think it's funny because I'm like, he doesn't need to see my face. Like, what, I don't know. It's just funny. Like, he can see you and see what you're doing, but he wants to look up at your face and he turns his head sideways to look at you. It's just a funny thing.
Interesting.
He's like, what are you doing? He's like, look at it. He's got to see your face, right?
In India, I think they say dolphins and elephants are people. They give them personhood.
Oh, wow.
Non-human people.
All right. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and become a member over at timcast.com. We're going to have that members only show coming up for you about 11 p.m., but we're going to read your super chats now. All right. Jay Mary says, thanks for having Savanah. Y'all are the future of journalism because y'all have integrity. Please stay safe out there. And remember, pioneers take the arrows. We all have our part to do. Wow. Enlightened Fool says, Crowder's interview with Alex Jones was enlightening. Very interesting.
Indeed.
Woot Do For You says, home invasion cast. Yeah. Another person showed up to the same property. And people were saying it's not, they claim to be a fan. And they're like, it's not a fan, it's recon. And I'm like, no, I get it. And I think clearly it's not a fan because nobody would show up to this property a day after a bullet was just shot at 2 other home invaders. Yeah. So it's like maybe trying to come back to case the joint, maybe because they dropped stuff and they need an excuse to go check it out.
Well, testing security, seeing the response, seeing who's there, seeing if, what's the response time, who's going to show up. There's a lot of crazy-ish going around there.
To any of the other fans in the chat, don't do that. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody showing up to the properties are a fan of anything.
No.
I think it's just an excuse, but the excuse doesn't work. Like, none of our security guys are assuming anybody showing up is a fan. They're like, doesn't matter what you think you are. Like, death threats are death threats.
Yeah, coming uninvited is not nice.
Red Hood 13 says, I want to see a new Burn Notice series. Quote, I used to be a spy until I quit and started to work at Twitter. Midas says, the country and the government is now a facade for the elite. The government takes and abuses power, and then no one does anything because people expect the government to police itself. We need to start policing the government. Politicians should fear us. Ostracizing them and shunning them. I'd put it this way. Don't let politicians into your business. Hey, if they want to make political affiliation a protected class outside of D.C., then maybe. But there's only a handful of politicians I'd be willing to make a burger for. I
like what you said yesterday about the police that are coming in and shutting down American business owners. Don't allow them in any other business.
Right.
Make their faces known, make their names known. I think that's a really good way of, pushing back nonviolently.
But it would require the people of Fredericksburg to all recognize who these people are, these cops, and then agree politically. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to get leftists who, for no other reason than the cops are being shunned by anti-vaxxers, will start serving them, despite the fact they're the defund the police faction. So
it's very strange, right? Because I feel like Antifa is almost there with their mindset. They're almost there, but they're not quite there yet.
Steven Zilligan says, wish Pelosi gave Tim an excuse to break out his impression. He sounds like Will Ferrell doing Harry Carey in a female tone.
Yeah. That's your Pelosi talks like this. Donald Trump is just so awful.
Oh, man. I love that one.
I mean, but it's like intentionally gross.
Yeah, of course.
And just try to, because that's how I feel when she talks. That's how I feel. Yeah. Ram Roy says this gas station thing feels like something out of the Stalker series. What's that? Do you guys know what that is?
It's like a video game, I believe. S.T.Stalker. I don't remember exactly. It's in Russia, a Russian-based game.
So apparently everybody seems to know what that bullpup shotgun is, and they're coming up with different ideas. One person said it looks like a Tavor 12 9mm, or the other is a Tavor 95 in 9mm. Let's see. Ashton says it's an MDR bullpup by Desert Tech. Then we have, what does it say? The Mercenary says that weapon in the video looks like a shotgun with a chamber looking like it fits the size of a 12-gauge shotgun shell. My dad had one like that. Wow. It looks just like a bullpump 12-gauge that I have as well. Then Josh V says bullpup shotgun. Look at the mag well and bolt size. There you go.
A lot of people responding.
Yep. A lot of people saying, Chris Vang says, 12 gauge bullpup. Look at the magazine. The magazine is very blocky. There you go. Let's see. Tusnolorum says, private security carry beanbag rounds in shotguns. Ergo, it's not a bullpup. It's an assault beanie. Aha.
Nice.
All right. Woot Do For You says, the firearm you're trying to figure out is an ATI Bulldog or a Tokarev TBV-12. I don't know. It may be those things. I know that I have a bullpup 12 gauge that is not one of those. I don't know. Is it, I don't know. What did the other person say? The desert one sounded like it might be it. Yeah. There you go. Okay. Philok says, we are a civilization in decline. We think we are just more aware of the conspiracies. The truth is, wicked people can't even conspire competently anymore. Compare even the honeyed words of snakes then and now. There is no comparison. Yeah.
I think of that Martin Luther King statement where it's the true, testament of evil is not to do evil, but to sit by while evil men do evil and do nothing and watch it happen.
The only thing required for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing.
Much more concise.
There's a couple different ones like that.
At least we're doing something. I did nothing from 2010 to 2019, so I feel better now.
Yeah.
Todd B says, Tim, did you see Crowder's interview with Jones today? Tell me Jones's description of Ye doesn't sound familiar. Literally said Ye wouldn't talk about that stuff, then show starts and he goes into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Publicity stunt.
Yeah.
So I don't know what kind of publicity he's looking for, but he got it.
AJ, what you doing? Come on the show, bro. Get out here.
We'll get AJ out here. We got to hand him that jar.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We got to make a skit of him being like a anti-Santa Claus coming in to steal the jar. That was the idea that we originally had.
For like a
Jones has got to pay off his bills, so he goes around collecting all the Alex Jones's right jars from everybody, and then he's able to pay it off.
That's a great vlog.
I think Seamus did that for Freedom Tunes.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I don't think so.
Well, we can do the live action.
Yeah, we'll
version.
do a live action.
Seamus did a really, really good bit about the Ye thing, where it's like, I'm outside and I meet Ye, and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Tim. And he goes, who is they, though? And I'm like, that's Jim. Who is they, though? That's Steven Crowder. Who is they, though?
Yeah, that one's good.
That's Officer Bill. Who is they, though? Kanye, you got to stop talking about people like they're not here. And then he says, I think everyone is special and have something to offer. And then I go, exactly. And then he says, especially Hitler. And then everyone does it. You got to watch the Freedom Tunes. It's funnier.
it's
Seamus nailed it. It's very, very good. All right. Kevin Quaznaza says, Elon Musk censored free speech and lied about it. Changed my mind. I lied about it, perhaps. The symbol posted by Kanye is the symbol of realism, I guess. Mm-hmm. It looks like a Star of David with a swastika in the middle. And it's a religious group that believes aliens created humanity or something like that.
Right.
Elon Musk deleted it, suspended Ye, and said it was for inciting violence.
I don't agree with that.
No one does.
No, I mean, I agree
don't
that he
agree.
did that. I don't agree with the assumption. What were you
No,
saying?
that's what I'm saying. Like, no, basically everyone came out and they were like, what? Inciting violence? He posted an offensive image.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to like the image, but he didn't tell anybody to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first red flag for me was when Elon, based off of his own personal feelings, said that Alex Jones couldn't come back on the platform. That was a big red flag for me because, again, Elon has done a good job of changing Twitter from its original origins. We're in a lot better place than we were 2-4 years ago. However, there's still work to be done, and now we just have a new person that's allowed to be the arbiter of what freedom of speech really means.
Yep. Ready to Rumble says, please stop talking crap about Neuralink because it's going to save lives literally by helping the paralyzed walk and the blind see and so much more. I agree. But there's part of me that worries that there's going to be people who have injuries, have nervous system injuries, and they're going to say, yes, please. And I got to be honest, if it were me, I'd probably say the same thing. I'd say, yes, give me the implant, help me walk once again. But then who knows what that implant will do to them?
And I think the common sense take on this too is, do you really expect our government not to take advantage of this type of technology?
Yeah.
Think about that.
I expect them to hack into it and try
Exactly.
and watch what's being thought.
I was reading a Forbes article earlier today about how you can now hack into up to 10,000 different types of vehicles and extract people's personal data.
Yeah. As the adage goes, the path to hell is paved with good inventions. So
Exactly.
Good inventions.
good inventions, good intentions.
I like that.
Graham Godfrey says, just yesterday I was offered assisted death when canceling my transplant.
We were joking about that before the show. Jeez. I mean, kind of joking. We're talking about it.
That's crazy, man. Canada's like just offering to kill people.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean,
We're supposed to have...
at least the government's honest now. They were doing it secretly. Now they're doing it overtly. So give them props for that.
We like to talk about how Simpsons predicts a lot of things, but in this instance, Futurama called it. The suicide booths. One of the best jokes is how Bender has the coin on the string to get his money back, but he's about to kill himself. So it's just like, what was the point of doing that? You know? And then, I think this is the first episode. It's how Fry meets Bender. And then he pushes him back and survives. And then Bender gets mad. He's like, what a ripoff.
It's the pilot.
It's like, the pilot.
See, where Neuralink ends up for me is people uploading their consciousness to some type of, I don't know, like AI cloud or whatever, and then also being a part of the assisted suicide, but then their consciousness is in the cloud. I don't know. I feel like that's where that progression goes to.
There's a show like that. What was it called? I watched it. I can't remember. It's about, in the future, people can upload their consciousness when they die. So like you can retire indefinitely. And there's this dude who gets, like a car accident or something. So they're like, well, you're going to die. We can transfer your consciousness before you do. Otherwise, you're dead. And then he does.
Is it called Upload?
Upload, is that what it is? Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. It's a pretty good show. It's an interesting concept. But people will eventually just live forever. Not really, though. Like, it's not really going to be you. You know, I think we certainly don't know how to transfer a soul or whatever a soul, like, is made of or whatever it is. I don't even know if it exists in this plane. Like if you talk about DMT stuff, we've had those conversations with Michael Malice, and it's like something connecting people to beyond the veil. So our soul may not even be here. So transferring it into a machine may not even be possible.
Yeah.
Unless you like figure out a way to make an organic brain regenerate perfectly forever. And then you hook up electrodes into a machine or something.
Or if you could figure out what subatomic spin is causing the electrodes to fire the way they're firing, and you could replicate that spin in a machine or in a subsystem of some sort, or virtually replicate the spin, you might be able to replicate the thought patterns.
Sure, but what I mean is that's not you. You know, like imagine you're playing Super Mario Brothers. Can you transfer Mario into another character? And it's like, well, it's just you. You're controlling the player character. If you leave, there's nothing there. And there's no way in the game to preserve your controls beyond you leaving. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is like what ensouls us here may not even be a part of this reality in any tangible way. It's beyond it. So it may be beyond any kind of reality-based physics.
Yeah.
You can replicate human thought pattern in a machine, but you ain't there.
Yeah, true.
What if you could keep doing it after you die? Like you still have control of your thought patterns because it's preserved in a machine, and you can keep talking to people after your body's dead.
So like your soul somewhere else is controlling the machine, maybe. I don't know, man. I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. That's certainly something. A lot of people just, we talk to a lot of religious people, and they think it's not possible for the soul to exist in that way, and no idea. I would not presume to know. All right, Trace Ventura says, as a huge fan, it's really upsetting that a few bad actors had to destroy a lot of what you guys had planned for the business. Many of us may never get to meet you guys. Unfortunately, it's true. Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw my 4 p.m. video, but creepy phone calls being sent, like veiled threats, basically. And we get a lot more than people realize. There's a whole bunch of, well, I'll put it this way, behind the scenes of the show, there's a war going on. And I'm not even kidding. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's legal battles. There's death threats, stuff we don't talk about. The stuff you see is surface level, swattings, creepy phone calls. And someone tweeted at me a great point saying that the right has been has been pressured into being silent abuse victims. They need to start talking about what's going on more. And I'm like, 100%. I keep hearing it over and over again. Don't tell anybody it's happening. Don't tell, you'll make it worse. And I'm like, okay, just at this point, tell me how it's making it worse. Because it's not stopped. It's only gotten worse. Yeah. Well, it'll be worse than this. Okay, fine, whatever. Maybe that'll get law enforcement, if they're still in existence, to do something about it. Maybe the issue is it's a low-tier, blunt terrorism that never reaches the level where any law enforcement agency actually wants to take care of it. How about we just say it's happening? And if they want to make it worse, well, then that's going to be on law enforcement to figure it out, not me.
Well, I think that we've seen time and time again that until you hold them accountable, law enforcement really isn't going to do anything. So, yeah. I say keep, talking about what's happening.
Yeah, it's like a weird cold terrorism almost. They just don't say anything about it.
I feel for people that are like alone, like YouTubers that are super famous but not that wealthy and working alone in their house, and it happens to them, because like the nature of the entertainment industry is you're going to get weird phone calls and doxing and crap, but it's private security and secure locations. You need that if you're going to be a famous entertainer.
There's no such thing as a secure location anymore.
Just like a walled compound.
That, yes. But like the idea that you can mask where you are, it's literally impossible. I've had people emailing me being like, Tim, here's the trick. And it's like, if you think we have not implemented these techniques and everything, it's just like, look, we have guests. Guests have to know where we are. Guests have staff. They also know where we are. They tell a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend, and then it's impossible to keep addresses a secret. So what you really just need is a bunch of armed dudes and a warning to people that if you trespass, you will be presumed to be a lethal threat.
A wall and border security. Show America how it's done, Tim.
30-foot big concrete walls all the way around. Or no, we'll do bollard fencing around the property.
Or just really good self-defense training.
You know what we'll do?
Which I've been doing for like 2 years.
I'll just get 15 German shepherds. And that's it. And then we'll just let them run around. You know, there'll be a lot of poop everywhere.
Atlas is going to have, a litter.
A litter.
Oh, hell yeah.
So we'll just, raise them on the land as savages, and we'll teach them a coded language that only we know. That's the thing too. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that with trained dogs, you don't use
English.
Yeah.
You use different languages and you use your own kind of vernacular.
You make up words.
Oh,
you make up words for
no
specific
accidental.
actions. So if you're in a conversation with somebody, you don't accidentally use the word because the dogs is like German Shepherds. I have one. They're super smart. They hear every word. Their ears are always perked up. And if you could say, I'm on guard today, and guard is the word that they're activated on, you're gonna have a problem and situation on your hand because when they go crazy, they go crazy.
But also, bad guys can use the commands on your dog. And your trained dogs probably won't listen, but there could be circumstances where they've got food and, they try and feed the dog or something.
Would you guys connect 60 German Shepherds to a neural network and then put one in your brain and control them with your brain?
You probably could, actually. They did that thing with the roach where they remote controlled it. What they do is they created a remote control thing for a human where they put some device on the person that screwed with their equilibrium. And then when they would turn the control stick, it would make the person feel like they were going to fall over. So they would try and walk to the left to stop from falling over. And it made them and they were freaked out. Yeah, it's crazy.
A couple of days ago when I was training my dog for protection work, the trainer that I worked with brought out his dog. And then I put the sleeve on and he was like, let me show you what the dog's capable of doing. And it is terrifying. They will rip your arm off without even thinking about it. The strength and the power and the ferocity that these dogs have within them. I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. Ian's eyes are opening up. So yeah, you better watch out. You better treat Atlas nice, Ian.
Amazing creature.
Yeah.
I love you, Atlas.
Yeah, not wake me up in the morning. Staff here listening.
They're like wolves. I mean, that's the closest thing to a wolf. Is German Shepherd? Is that the closest thing to a modern wolf in the dog?
Well, there's also Huskies that are also very close.
Belgian Malinois.
Belgian Malinois are also being used a lot by militaries and police. But I love dogs. I grew up around dogs. A German Shepherd saved my grandma's life during World War II.
What happened?
It's an insane story. Maybe we could get into it in the after show. Yeah.
All right, we'll do that one. All right, Tech Yarg says the interview on Alex Jones was a setup. I DM'd Luke We Are Change with the clip.
Where did you send it? Because that's my Twitter handle and Instagram handle. Also, there's a lot of fakes out there. So if you're seeing _ Luke We Are Change or just any other version of it that is not actually Luke We Are Change, please report those fake accounts. There's a lot of people spamming. I will never be asking you for money directly through DMs. So please ignore all those fakes, and I'll check my DMs on Instagram and Twitter to see, and also Facebook. That's me on there too. So. Thanks for sending me the clip.
Semper Ives says, Tim, you got a lot of flack saying the black vote when saying you don't believe in identitarianism. Could you go into how you were going to explain that to Ye? Yeah, Ye lied. Before the show, I didn't literally say, hey, Ye, you're black, therefore black people will vote for you. I said, if you go door to door and you ask someone Trump, Biden, Ye, they're going to say Ye because you're more personable. You're a celebrity. People know your name. In the context of that, I said that the cultural stuff that he builds is hip hop and stuff is prominent in the black community. He probably would do well in certain areas of that. He said, yeah, but, and it was funny because before the show, it was a very calm and reasonable thing. He's like, yeah, but there's a lot of black people who don't like me. And I'm like, no, I know, of course. But I think that race plays a role for a lot of people. I have a story I've told about how when I was skating on the south side of Chicago, my friend whose grandmother was black said, vote for Obama because he'd be the first black president. Race does play a role for a lot of people. It is not the same thing to say there's a Jewish vote in Florida. There's a Jewish vote in New York. There's a black vote in New York. There's a Latino vote in Florida. There's a Latino vote in Texas. Nobody cares about that. They talk about the Jewish vote in New York all the time. No one wants to destroy your life because you brought it up. It's a false, it's a false equivalence. Like, so then what happens is Ye tries to spring like a gotcha. He goes, you said I'd get a bunch of black votes because I'm black. And I'm like, that's not exactly what I said. It's kind of twisting what I said. I think it's more so that when you have someone who is successful and people can see him as like a representation of where they come from, Chicago, hip hop, urban, and many people in the black community, yeah, they're going to see themselves in you. You're going to inspire them. Race does play a role in that. We've talked about it a lot on this show. It's like people are trying to find a way. Let me say, I'll tell you guys a story, man. I had a Discord server once. I got rid of it. And I'll tell you why. Because there are people who are just psychotically obsessed with Jewish people, the same way woke people are psychotically obsessed with white people. Yeah. And it's really annoying to me because it doesn't actually talk about anything. It doesn't solve any problems. And so what happened was I created Discord so that we just talk about the news. Like, what's the news today? And there were a group of people, like a small handful, that no matter what the news was, they would turn it into talk about Jewish people. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We were talking about pineapple on pizza. And then all of a sudden some guy is like, I had pizza in Israel once. And I was like, oh, you're kidding me, dude. And then someone says, you know, Israel this. And I'm like, I'm shutting this thing down. Because these people were derailing everything. And that was probably their intent. And I said, I am not going to sit here where these people just keep spamming the same thing over and over again. There's no conversation, and it's totally pointless.
That's what it felt like when I was administrating mines for like 4 years. I'm like, this is nonstop. These are all the people that got banned off YouTube and Facebook for saying all this, stuff anti-Jew. I don't know if it's anti-Jew, but like sympathizing with the Nazi kind of mentality. Is that the way to look at it? Like the Hitler wasn't so bad mind.
That wasn't the issue for the Discord server.
Yeah, the issue so was annoying when that comes in waves, and it's just like, dude, how do you stop that?
But that's not the issue. The issue was like if Israel was in the news, like what was it, Protective Edge or whatever, some like Israel bombing Palestine. I have no problem if people say whatever they wanted about Israel or Jewish people. I'm like, the problem was we'd be talking about Donald Trump wanting to like lower taxes, and then someone would turn it into a conversation about Jewish people, and I'm like, you have a psychological problem. I get it. You are obsessed with this. I'm trying to do this wasn't a free speech platform. This was literally today's news subjects, discuss, and then people want to shut down the conversation. And I'm like, okay, we clearly can't do it this way, so I'm not interested in having
This is great because I think it takes a lot of heat off Jewish people in general and refocuses it on British imperialism, like the foundation of Israel with the mandate for Palestine, the British mandate for Palestine. You refocus it on empire and take it off of the individuals or the race or the religions and stuff. Is such a better conversation.
I think it's also particularly annoying. Like I did a segment today talking about the film Wednesday, or the show Wednesday. Tim Burton's being accused of being racist because two of the characters, the two black characters are bullies. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, you literally just can't have a diverse cast because there's no position you can put any, marginalized voice in without someone being upset about it. We rag on that stuff all the time. When I tell someone to shut up about white people, it's like white people aren't the problem, which is like a large bulk of the culture war conversations. It's weird to me that people act like when we say the same thing about Jewish people, it's unique. Like, why are you saying that, Tim? It's like, we say the same thing about when people are like, oh, black people can't be bullies. Sure, they can. They can be bullies. They can be good people. They can be bad people. They can be gay people. They can be bankers. They can be anything. Who knows? Yeah. But the funny thing about the Tim Burton stuff is that the characters that are accused of being bullies aren't even bullies. They're like, actually just good guy characters, like they're normal characters with flaws and normal things. And these people got mad that black characters are depicted negatively, so they got outraged about it. And then they want to get stuff banned.
Well, and I think that's the greater issue of our society, right, is that we have the population creating these fake problems because they've been so coddled. We have it so easy in this country that we have to create these fake problems, and racial division is one of the easiest things for everybody to fight about. And I truly think that's what it is at the core of it, right? You have a huge subset of the population that truly just wants to fight for something, that wants to be the hero, that wants to have something that they're doing positively with their lives, that they're contributing to society, and racism right now just happens to be the easiest thing. So they're making issue out of nothing.
Jesse Kelly was saying that's how communism finds its way into systems, is through the vulnerabilities of the disenfranchised. Whoever is feeling like a victim right now, that's perfect incubation for communist mentality. Yep. The group, the government will save us from it. Anti-Semitism, anti-white, all this crap.
Let's read this one from Brent. Brett Noel says, Chat GPT is so good already. How long until it could copy an individual's speech writing style so well that people, especially political leaders, can live forever through their AI consciousness? We're already there. Apparently, Facebook has this thing, or they've been working on it, where after someone dies, you can take all of their posts and chat history and turn it into an AI. I'll also mention this. Homework no longer exists.
It doesn't.
With chat AI, someone tweeted this. They said, write a short essay about the effect of westward expansion on the Civil War. And then it wrote a page about literally that, a unique essay that you could then read through, make sure and it's all correct, and then turn it in as your own.
Well, that's good, because I was actually just reading an article about how a high school in Baltimore, 77% of their students were reading at an elementary grade level. So it's a good thing that we have AI to come and think for us, because the majority are complete and utter idiots. Thank you to our education system.
Well, homework was a scam anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was dumb.
The entire education system is a scam at this point.
It is. So it always has been.
The thing about these AIs is ChatGPT is an establishment liberal. Someone had it perform the political typology quiz, and it was an establishment liberal, which is to the left of like average Democrat and 1 degree to the right of progressive leftist. And it's because the AI is trained over a decade on an internet that has censored all these right-wing ideas.
Yeah, literally.
So
there's another video on by Asianometry who did a video about this and about like I think it's like Van Neumann structure. Maybe you know more about it, Ian, than I would. But he talks specifically about this, and specifically about the GPT, whatever it's called, that I watched last night. That was really interesting. By the way, if anyone's interested in looking at it.
We just need to delete AI, delete the humanoid robots, delete the San Francisco robots that just got, armed. Or I'm sorry, they're not going to shoot you. They're just going to violently explode next to you.
Yeah.
My apologies here. The sentient AI that's now, speaking to us and creating art. I don't like it. I really don't.
How's education going to work? Are kids just going to download the essay?
Yeah, the approved narrative. That's how it's going to work. They're going to, insert the brain chip, download the approved narrative. Beautiful.
So
We'd love to see it.
think for yourself is becoming more important.
Yeah.
that's the goal of schools, maybe. Get us to the point where they have to have Neuralink.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you can't do math anymore. When was the last time anybody actually wrote out some division?
I'm in media. I don't use math for a reason.
When you go to a restaurant, the amount of the tip is written out for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's funny because it's, do people know how to do 20%? It's just like...
It's like the easiest calculation.
It's 10% times 2.
Yeah.
Anytime you got to do a 30 times 40 times 50, it's just times 10 times 3.
There's a bunch of different ways you can do it, but nobody does anymore. They just look at the receipt, and the receipt says the number. And this guy sued because he found out one restaurant was saying like 10% and putting a higher number because nobody knows the math. And now everyone's got mini supercomputers in their pockets. There's a math for them.
We've outsourced
the poor guy didn't have a fact checker to make sure the receipt was correct,
Yeah. Let's see. There was one super chat that I wanted to read. Let me see if I can find it. Some people mentioning that it's definitely a bullpup shotgun. Thank you for pointing that out. And there's one last one. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Clef the Misfit says, Ian, Jews are not the only group who share an ethnicity and a religion. It's very common in the Middle East, such as the Druze, the Yazidis, as well as the Rohingya in South Asia.
Yeah, Ian.
Yeah, Ian.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, you're right about that for sure.
All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member over at timcast.com. We're going to have a members-only show coming up for you. We post them just about 11 p.m. It's going to be a lot of fun, not so family-friendly. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. Follow us on Instagram. We post clips. You can follow me personally. Twitter, Instagram is a good place, at Timcast. Savanah, you want to shout anything out?
Go follow me on Twitter. I'm back now, guys, at Sav_says_ or on YouTube, Sav Says. Thank you, Tim, for having me. It's been a fun conversation. I was really nervous, but, we got straight into the government corruption, and all the nerves just went away.
More to come. Members only.
It's a love language, I would say.
Indeed.
Anyway, my name's Luke Radowski. My YouTube channel is We Are Change. I did a very interesting video about China. And my main video was on LukeUncensored.com, specifically about Ron DeSantis, who is just doing incredible things in Florida, especially when it comes to putting big pharma in check. He's doing something absolutely incredible. Maybe we could talk about it on the after show where their sticker on my shirt comes off. And LukeUncensored.com is the website. Hope to see you there.
Thank you guys out there for keeping me honest, keeping the crew honest, keeping everybody honest with things like about the Yazidis, all that. Savanah, it's great to see you again. Always good to hear about your work. Next time you come, bring a white pill. I'll bring a white pill. I'm not talking about MDMA, but we should all bring a white pill. Have a white pill party if you know what I'm talking about. Positive future growth. We'll talk about solutions.
Love
yeah,
it.
good to see you, man. Savanah, bro.
Great episode. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the comments. I'm at Serge.com everywhere. You can find me.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Cheers.